take one layer off here that shows the potential for hail, which again, this storm does carry the potential for some large hail, but the bigger situation is the potential and existence of a tornado, confirmed tornado near Newton and moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. So we'll put that storm track on here. That keeps it largely north of the Grinnell region, but even if you're in Grinnell, I would like you to take shelter. That's in the interior room on the lowest floor of your home, whether that be the first floor or the basement. Basement's best, of course, but lowest floor away from exterior walls is the very best. So that is what we're watching here, and that takes into Newburgh at 618. I believe that's just outside of our area, but Chelsea and Tama County at 646, Vining at 649, and then approaching Belle Plaine toward the 7 o'clock hour, that eastern edge of the warning that you see flashing on your screen. That's when the warning expires at 7, and that's where that storm is headed. And yeah, there's a lot of rotation with this storm. You can see it just northeast of Newton. Hasn't really lost any of its intensity over the past, gosh, 90 minutes, 2 hours at this point. It's been going pretty steadily. Kai, you've got the track of this storm. You can see it all the way from southwestern Iowa.
Yeah.
It's been long tracked and producing tornadoes along the way.
Yeah, and you know, really through about 2 or 3 o'clock from a severe weather standpoint, it really wasn't too active a day quite yet, but things very quickly change this time of year as well. So if you want to pop on over to Max 2, we've got the storm report string here. This goes all the way back to Shenandoah, and just the most recent reports that we have had come through here. And you heard Corey talk about this a little bit earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight various reports here and then clear them off the screen. So the Lambs Grove area is just west of Newton, and that's where the tornado was on the ground at 5:46, not too much long ago really, and a house has been reportedly flattened in the area. Of course, this is another one of those cases where we're getting a lot of reports at once, so we're going to get those relayed as soon as we can get them. But this storm has been very close to the Des Moines area as well. Number of tornado reports came in on this, one of them near the Norwalk area, and this was via the spotter network of apparent damage to several houses and structures, and this is the apparent tornado path as well, kind of in this particular area. It goes back a little ways towards the Winterset area, where there was a picture of a large, almost wedge looking tornado that came through that area as well. And the reason why we go back on the storm history is it kind of tells us what it's been capable of before, and as long as the ingredients are in place as they continue to move to the east, we're going to continue to watch this carefully. But this is near the Winterset area. 12 trees snapped off, path a couple hundred yards wide. So we'll see what happens with the original assessment or the official assessment on this. And then farther back towards the south and west, there was a lot of hail in the Orient area, 2 to 2.5 inch diameter hail. Earlier, I saw a picture of a car with the windows blown out of it because the hail was so strong. So it's been an interesting one, that's for sure, with this particular storm cell, Corey.
And if we take a look at Max 1, we can see the winds within the storm. This is the velocity view on our radar, just taking it full screen here. It's that area just northwest of Kellogg where we're most concerned for the potential for some damage due to a tornado that the National Weather Service calls on the ground, according to spotters. So you see winds moving away from the radar, winds moving toward, and that's where you get that rotation inferred from looking at the radar. If we just zoom out just a little bit and then put a loop on one time, you can see that rotation doesn't really diminish. It sticks with us throughout the course of the last hour, and no signs of it continuing to decrease. It looks like the warning continues for portions of the area. National Weather Service still describing it as a particularly dangerous situation. It's affecting a lot of rural areas right now, but it is moving into some areas that obviously people live near rural areas too, just north of Kellogg, north of the Oakland Acres area. These are both communities along Highway 6. The most dangerous portion of the storm, though, is staying to the north of Highway 6. At this point, it looks like that is likely to continue. So the north side of Grinnell in particular is still in danger from this storm. Other areas to the north also in danger too. The storm will cross Highway 146 in western Poweshiek County in about, well, let's put a storm track and find out. That's our tornado right there. Pretty easy to pick out on the radar. And so that puts you in the Newburgh area, which is far eastern Jasper County. So that's just outside of our area, but that's at about 6:20. So it enters Poweshiek County about that time and then crosses Highway 146 in the next 5 to 10 minutes after that, most likely. Again, these storms moving about 45 to 55 miles per hour. And this storm has maintained its intensity. It's had the classic supercell shape that you see sometimes in Iowa, more often in the plains, but the strongest part up here with the hail falling to the north, and then this area right here where the arrow is pointing, that's the tornado in the reflectivity signature. If you can pick it up on there, and it's very clear on the velocity signature too, where those two areas meet. Looks like it may be getting a bit reorganized, and so the actual location of the tornado may change, but the threat of this storm producing a tornado certainly hasn't.
And it's been producing some damage. It's been producing some tornadoes along its path here, and this warning does continue here. And this is going to continue moving off to the east-northeast at about 45 miles an hour or so. And you mentioned just that classic supercell look, Corey. We've been watching this thing with that hook on it now for the better part of several hours now, about 2 hours when this thing really started, and it's continuing to hold its strength here off towards the east. On Max 2, we've got the DOT camera. This is near the Kellogg area. Now, obviously, it's down near the road path right now where the DOT typically likes to keep their cameras because that's why they're there, to watch the traffic. But if they're able to move that up to see what we can see here, but it'd have to be looking straight up towards the north. So it's not doing much in the Kellogg area at the moment, but folks that are along Interstate 80, if this thing is indeed on the ground, it's just to the north of Interstate 80 here as it continues to go to the north. One thing I do want to discuss here too is just the simple environment that we have today. We've had temperatures into the 50s and 60s, a lot of 60s actually for daytime highs, even hit 70 in Mount Pleasant today. You can see where our cold front is at here. It's back down towards the west-southwest of us. It's moved through the Fort Dodge and Carroll areas. This is really the line of storms, Corey, for the night. This appears to be the event that we are dealing with. And if we're going to see any severe weather, it seems like this is the line that is probably going to cause it here, especially when you have that kind of a temperature contrast and also a huge dew point contrast, too, with this air mass today. We had dew points 50s to low 60s. And, you know, in June and July, that's not typically enough to get things to brew. But this time of year, with the winds aloft so strong, that's enough to get things going. And we've certainly seen that happen in central Iowa.
Yep, easy to tell if just stepping outside today that how humid and warm it was. That's obviously a little bit unseasonable. We do have a new tornado warning that does include portions of Mahaska County. This is areas just southwest of Oskaloosa, and that tornado warning continues until 6:45. That's for the potential of a tornado. That also includes the potential for penny to quarter-sized hail. Looks like it's a radar-indicated tornado at this point, but these storms in southern Iowa have also produced tornadoes at times this evening. So we'll put a quick velocity scope on that, and you can see it's that area right there that has the potential to produce a tornado where the arrow is pointing on your screen, and it's that portion of the storm that will move off to the northeast. So let's put a quick storm track on that too. It should be moving about the same speed, I believe. Yep, still 45 miles per hour. So that takes it into the Marysville area, which is just outside of Mahaska County. But Cricket at 625. We're looking for Edmondson Park. That gets it toward the Oskaloosa area at 638, and Oskaloosa right around 642. It looks like we're going to go back up to the other tornado warning too. So folks in Mahaska County, the Oskaloosa area, and points to the southwest, you do need to seek shelter. Here, just north of the Tama area is where, or just south of the Tama area, excuse me, it's where we still have a tornado taking place, according to officials and emergency managers. It's this area right here that we are concerned about the future movements of a tornado on the ground. I'm going to put on something that we label as debris tracker. Basically, Doppler radar has gotten really good at and technologically advanced at being able to detect what's in a storm. And when you see an area like this that's blue surrounded by yellows and oranges like this kind of, and it's co-located with that area of rotation. And if we put the velocity scope, we're getting heavy here, it's right on top of it. So that is what we call a tornado debris signature. And so radar also detecting debris. We have spotter reports of this tornado. It is taking place. So if you live in Newburgh, especially if you happen to be catching us on the west edge of Poweshiek County, east edge of Jasper County, that is an area that is at significant danger with this storm system. Any rural areas along Highway 146 north of Grinnell, you are also in danger. It looks like Gilman, which is on 146, will be just a bit too far north, but they will likely see hail. We have seen large hail with these storms too. Some folks in Des Moines reporting up to golf ball sized hail at times. Yeah, very dangerous situation evolving in southern Tama and northern Poweshiek counties. And you may not see the storm coming. You may have the inclination to get out and take a look. Storm spotters in the area say that it is rain wrapped, and so the tornado is difficult to see. And so putting yourself out there to try to spot it yourself is putting yourself at danger. Now, the good news is that last radar scan looks a little different. Doesn't look quite as intense as maybe it was, but obviously the threat's still very much alive. Still, the velocity scope still looking pretty active there. It could just be reorganizing too, just a bit.
It is possible. There was a spotter report back at 6:02, which was kind of the impetus of the continuation of the warning. There was another spotter report. This was back at 6:12 on that exact same storm cell that a spotter mentioned they had a visual north of Kellogg, but it was very difficult to see at that point. It was very difficult to see. One thing we're seeing also here, especially on that southern Iowa storm, this is the Ottumwa City Cam. You see that there in the lower right-hand side of the screen. It's moving, that storm cell itself is moving east-northeast, but we're looking west right now on the Ottumwa City Cam. We've got full control of this camera, so we're going to be able to kind of follow this as it continues to come, likely just north and east of the Ottumwa area, but it is close, and it's got pretty good velocity on that, Corey, too. So we'll keep a close eye on this system too, because this is going to be one here on the southern end of this line as you put a storm track on it near Albia here before too long, and then eventually towards Eddyville, and it may miss Ottumwa just to the north, but if it does, it's not by much, and so that's going to be something worth monitoring as well. So you see the visual there in the lower right hand corner of the screen on the Ottumwa City Cam. So I'll keep on monitoring this as well, as we've got now multiple tornado warnings in the viewing area, Corey.
Yep, very close to the Ottumwa area. Not in this warning officially for parts of Mahaska and Wapello counties, but it is going to be, as Kai said, very, very close. That warning goes until 6:45. Folks in that region also need to seek shelter if you haven't already. We'll take a wider view. So we do have quite a few areas that we're concerned about right now, and it's just in the western portion of the viewing area. And top of mind at this point is still the warning that includes portions of Tama and Poweshiek County. That's where tornado warning continues for the next 45 minutes. It's where we have storm spotters reporting a tornado that was near the Kellogg area. That's north. That area is west of Grinnell, but the storm and the portion that we're concerned with at this point is north of Grinnell. So folks in Newburgh, again, cannot emphasize enough, 622, it is on your doorstep. Sheridan, a little further to the east in northern Poweshiek County, 634. Storm that is producing a tornado. You need to take it seriously. You need to take shelter as soon as you possibly can. It is a serious situation there, and one that continues to evolve. The determination today of sort of what might take place was, were these storms going to stay relatively isolated, or would they congeal into a line and then damaging wind would kind of be the main threat? Thus far, they have stayed relatively isolated, and that has given this tornado potential plenty of leeway to take place.
And it'll be very interesting to see, Corey, if these actually wind up congealing into a line or if they do stay broken all the way across eastern Iowa, because by staying broken like that, it actually enhances their rotation potential.
Absolutely.
And this could even continue well after the sun goes down, kind of like we're seeing right now. So we're obviously losing the daylight. So as these storms continue to make their progress off to the east, it is something we just really want you to be aware of tonight, Saturday night. Obviously, people have stuff going on, and when you're out and about, these kind of things can really sneak up on you. One thing I do want to discuss here is how to submit storm reports, because you saw us going over storm reports a little while ago. How exactly do you get that job done? Well, the description, the location, and photos, if they're safe, is obviously number one. We definitely want to know where you are. Instead of saying it's hailing where I am, well, where are you? Even if it's approximate location, you could say something as simple as northeast side of town or southwest side of town. You could submit that on the KCRG-TV9 First Alert weather account via email at weather@kcrg.com, or can actually submit it to your local National Weather Service office as well. When it comes to hail, which you've had a number of large hail reports come out of this, just measure it or estimate it as best you can. Flooding, we've had no reports of, thankfully, which is good news. But we probably won't see much of that for this particular event. Wind, we've had a number of wind damage reports with downed limbs or trees, downed power lines, roof damage, as well as any tornado reports. And even as simple as I see a rotating wall cloud can help us immensely in a situation like this. Funnel clouds, tornadoes, or any particular damage that you may actually have. When we are looking at these storms as they continue to move in from the west here, 3 active tornado warnings on this, and it does look like we've had an expansion now on the tornado watch. Let me see if I can get this graphic up here. The tornado watch that's going to go, it actually goes until 11 o'clock now. They've expanded that off to the east. That does include the Dubuque area. That includes the Manchester area. It also involves Cedar Rapids and Iowa City now. You may have just gotten an alert on your phone, so just want you to be aware of that. It's one of those situations where the threat's there, right? And we've seen some ground truth with all this, and now it gets a little more dangerous under the cover of night. That's where things can get kind of interesting, and so definitely be careful with this here going into the evening hours. Make sure your weather radio is ready to go. Make sure you if you do have any evening plans to be away from your house, be sure you've got a way to get that warning, because as you've been tracking, Corey, these things have been moving to the northeast pretty quick, really all afternoon.
Yeah, and we continue to get reports from spotters of a tornado that exists on the ground. This was from a few minutes ago, but it was northeast of Kellogg. And so that's this storm that is the major storm of the day, though there have been reports of damage with other storms too, but this is the one that we are focused on right now as it enters the TV9 viewing area. You can see that area of rotation still here, right about to enter northwest Poweshiek County. It's just a few miles away from the crossing of Highway 146, Iowa Highway 146. It's only 3 miles to the west of that, and then proceeding toward the area near Sheridan. So Sheridan in northern Poweshiek County, and then communities in southern Tama County. We'll put a longer storm track on this now to give you kind of an idea going forward over the next little while. So Sheridan, again, you're the first in line at 6:35. Then we get toward Long Point at 6:45. Chelsea at 6:50, Vining at 6:53, and then Belle Plaine toward the tail end of this warning at 7. So we do have several communities that are involved in this. And even if you don't see damage particularly from a tornado, there is still the potential for hail. The storm is warned for quarter-sized hail. A report from the National Weather Service in the Lambs Grove area of an 18-wheeler overturned in that region. Now, whether that's the same area where the tornado portion of the storm went through, so it's a little tough to say what exactly caused that damage, but that is one of those areas that is reporting damage. Storm continues off to the northeast. We'll put a quick loop on it. You can see it's changed shape a little bit, but the rotation within it hasn't. It's probably, even from a visual perspective, maybe gotten a bit more dangerous because you won't be able to see the tornado. But the report from a spotter in northeast Jasper County is that it did just cross County Road T38 near Newburgh, and that's one of the communities we've been talking about. Yeah, so the tornado still exists, passing south of Gilman, Newburgh here in northeast Jasper County.
So the other thing about this, Corey, is just the sheer history that these storm reports have exhibited. And within our chat program that we are utilizing here, there's also a report from emergency management of an airplane that slid off the runway at the Waterloo Airport, and trying to figure out that's a visibility issue or other weather-related issue that could have been happening, or perhaps it wasn't weather-related at all. But that report happened in the last 30 minutes in the Waterloo area. Let's pop over to Max 2 real quick here for the storm reports that we have obtained over the past 6 hours or so. Some hail that did fall in southern sections of Marshall County. So that was about a 1-inch diameter hailstone, so about quarter-sized hail that happened there in Marshall County. And then you'll notice the tornado reports that keep on following this particular storm cell. This tornado was reported on the ground northeast of Kellogg, just as you just summarized there, Corey. Farther back toward the south and west, look at the string of reports that are coming out of this. Now, you see all these tornado reports, right? There's a good chance, obviously it's going to come down to the survey team. There's a real good chance this is actually the same tornado. It's actually cycled a number of times here. It's probably not necessarily a bunch of separate ones. They're probably all reporting the same one. The 18-wheeler that was overturned, this was back just 5-6 minutes ago, likely on Interstate 80 for that one, most likely, given that location. Farther down to the south and west, this was a large rain-wrapped multi-vortex tornado on the ground. Those are big tornadoes, guys. They just are. And that's near the Spring Hill area. And this is all that same storm that actually originated clear back towards the Quincy area and even down by Shenandoah.
We welcome the viewers that are joining us on KYOU, originating out of Ottumwa, for tornado warning coverage. There are several tornado warnings in effect for portions of eastern Iowa. That does include portions of Wapello County. So we'll take a close look down here, down by the Ottumwa area. That warning continues until 6:45. Northwest, it's going to move into Wapello County about in the next 10 minutes, I believe. We'll put a pause on this and put a storm track on it too. So for right now, Ottumwa not included, but if you are in the Ottumwa area, I would be prepared to seek shelter if this storm happens to take a little bit of a jog to the right of its current track. So if you are near Albia, 6:30, so that's very close, entering the Munterville area at 6:41, Ottumwa Regional Airport, which is north of the city, at 6:54, and Fremont at 7, which is a little bit outside of the tornado warning area. But that is a pretty dangerous storm situation down that way too. Now the National Weather Service saying that these two storms kind of interacting with one another and perhaps producing a little bit of difficulty maintaining their strength. But on radar, the velocity signature is still there. You can still see it right here, the red and green meeting together, producing rotation that does give you pause and make you concerned about the potential for a tornado. So that warning continues for portions of Mahaska and Wapello County until 6:45. A bigger portion of Mahaska County also under a warning approaching the Oskaloosa area. This storm not as well organized on our view of velocity southwest of the Oskaloosa area, but the National Weather Service is maintaining that warning. It's moving to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour. So if this does get back, its act back together, Oskaloosa would be around 6:40. So toward the tail end of that warning, where that storm could get a little bit stronger. We'll recap one more time the storm that is further to the north here. The warning has been trimmed back to only include portions of Poweshiek and Tama County. The storm has maybe shifted a bit further north than it previously was. Put on the velocity scope again. Yeah, the velocity signature maintains. You can see it right here, crossing Highway 146, as mentioned, just east of Gilman. Gilman, a very small community in southeast Marshall County, but it's a good waypoint here to know where this tornado is going. So we'll put a storm track on that as well, putting off to the northeast. Gets it close to Chelsea at 6:50, Long Point at 6:54 or 6:45 rather, Vining at 6:53. So generally south of Highway 30, but even to the north east of Tama, you are included in this tornado warning. Folks in Tama, you're on the very edge of it. I would also seek shelter there. Looks like meteorologist Kyle O'Meara has our Ottumwa City Cam pulled up as well.
Yep, and this is one of those cases where it's really tough to see what's going on here because we've lost the daylight here. There's no question about that. But as we're starting to see here, these storms are coming in pretty quickly here. That's one thing that's for certain as we look at the Ottumwa City Cam. I do think, though, as we go forward here, I'm wondering if this southern storm is actually going to possibly take over this event here that is down the Mahaska area right now and could possibly get up into the Sigourney area as well. So I'll start pulling up that city cam that you can see here in the lower right-hand side of the screen here going forward. So that particular setup, we'll get that camera turned around. Right now it's looking to the east, but we'll get it turned around here so you can see what's going on as we turn it back around towards the north and west. Right now the storm reports have been continuing to come in. Now some of these that are coming in are rather interesting because we're getting some more damage reports to come in too in this particular sense, and it's one of those cases where we have the damage reports coming in, some tree damage just east-southeast of the Chariton area, which is where this storm in the south that you're looking at right now actually originated. So that's one thing. This thing came up actually really quickly over about the past hour and a half. It really blew up quick, and so that's continuing to move northeast, and I think that's going to be something that folks in Sigourney are really going to want to pay attention to this. Ottumwa may go a little bit farther to the north, but as you look in the lower right-hand side, look at the temperature contrast going on in this setup today. This is really kind of a classic. We were looking at this all week long for the severe weather potential in Iowa, and we've got 50s to low 60s here in eastern Iowa, cooling down to the 30s. It's snowing in northwest sections of the state, so it's a very powerful cold front coming through here. And you mentioned earlier, Corey, that these really don't seem to have any sort of reason to lose their strength. They might cycle a little bit, and they may not drop tornadoes all the way, but there's no reason not to think that we wouldn't wind up seeing these maintain their strength pretty much through the whole area. At
this point, yeah. So we'll take a wide view here in the state of Iowa. Storms have crossed Interstate 35 primarily. You can see that arc that they're along. That is a front, and we'll draw it here on your screen for you, and then it will show it's actually kind of a combination of something called a dry line and a cold front. And Kai showed you the temperature difference, obviously. We have been talking about the potential for a pretty sharp temperature drop this evening. So everything west of this line, including the Des Moines metro area at this point, they're out of the risk for severe weather. The focus is now shifted to eastern Iowa, where the threat continues for the next 2 to 3 hours at least as these storms move off to the east. Not necessarily saying that we will have a tornado threat for that entire time, but at this point we do. And the biggest threat right now still remains this storm that's going to pass very, very close to Tama. So if you are in the Tama area, you should be seeking shelter. That's the area that we have been most concerned with. The storm that produced the most damage in central Iowa still shows signs of rotation. It's this area, it's not as broad, so perhaps not as large of a tornado as it once was, but still showing indications that it is producing a tornado. We'll take a look at the debris tracker view again, just to see if it has that signature still. It's lost it, which is good news, of course. We do not want that by any stretch of the imagination, but going back in time, you can see this area in northeastern Jasper County, and then it sort of disappears as it gets further to the northeast. So the tornado at least isn't hitting something right now.
Right.
That's what it's detecting. Radar can sort of pick out different sized objects, and so if they're a uniform size, they show up as this red and orange color. So that's rain. Or their precipitation like that. But if they're not a uniform size, they show up on our display as that blue and green, which in some cases can be hail. But when it's that dark blue color, when there's very little relationship between the edges of that thing that it's detecting, that's when we know it's likely tornado debris.
Right, and especially sometimes when this happens in July or August, sometimes you can have corn husks actually trip this algorithm as well. There's no crops. So we kind of know that what's in the air is probably some sort of tornadic debris that's been going on. Speaking of that, this storm cell has had a huge history. Let's look back at the history of this thing and what it's been able to do. This is on Max 2 here. So this actually originated all the way back in southwest sections of the state, back into the mid-afternoon hours. Had a fair amount of hail with this come out of the area north of the Creston area, and it got some rotation to it, but it wasn't necessarily too robust at that point. It wasn't until it got to the Winterset area that it really started to spin quite a bit here. And so this is when the real tornado risk started to become much higher. And so we see these reports that are coming in here. This is actually back at 5 o'clock, which also gives an indication that this thing has gone that far in an hour and a half. So we had snapped branches, we had trees down, and we had a path a couple hundred yards wide. Where's this picture from?
Looks like the damage that you see in the lower right corner is from Winterset, Iowa.
Okay, so that's the tornado we're talking about right now in terms of storm reports. And you can see when the Weather Service will go out and do this survey, I'm going to pinpoint in real tight because you'll see 5, 6, 7 tornado reports that are in there. That's probably one tornado, maybe a couple, but it's probably just one that's being reported from all different angles. The history of that storm, look at this. The top story of this home is gone.
That's
and
significant
damage in the Winterset area. And you can also see all along the siding there that stuff's just plastered against that house. So we have had no word on injuries at all. Okay, so search and recovery efforts are underway in Winterset. According to our producer in the booth. Thank you for passing that along. We still, at this time, have not heard anything positive or negative in terms of injuries or fatalities at this point. So that is something we'll just continue to monitor as we go on. One thing about this, though, is it really looks like that southern end of that storm down there, and that one that you're looking at Tama as well, just continues to have that signature on it for the tornado.
Absolutely, and it's kind of at the southern end now of a line of storms. To the north toward Blackhawk County, Bremer County, not severe thunderstorms at this point. Lots of lightning, lots of rain with those storms, but it's this storm just south of Tama that the tornado warning for Poweshiek and Tama counties continues. This storm is the storm that produced damage in central Iowa, has produced damage in the recent history too, and still shows some signs of rotation as well. But it's not as intense as it once was. That's a good sign. It could be starting to outrun some of the more favorable conditions that we've had in central and south central Iowa, which would be good news too. However, the potential for it to produce a tornado certainly still with us. So we'll put on kind of a storm track here over the next, take it out half an hour. So that takes us to the end of this tornado warning. And so it's about near the Tama area. 6:41 will be the official time it gets closer to the Tama city limits. If you're in Tama, you need to be in shelter. Lowest floor of your home, which if it's a basement would be best. If it's just the first floor, get into the most interior room in your home, cover your head and neck, protect your most vital portions of your body there to stay safe. Get low, get underneath something sturdy like a workbench, anything that would be substantial and be able to sustain something falling on top of it, essentially, is the idea there as this storm pushes off to the northeast. Vining, 653, also in Tama County. If you live near the Salt Creek Wildlife Area, that would be 655, and then Elberon a little bit further to the northeast than that at 658. Let's take a look at the most updated radar information. And yeah, that still puts a broad area of rotation, certainly capable of producing a tornado.
It's not strengthening, it doesn't appear.
That's which
good.
is a good sign.
Yes.
But that rotation passing south of Tama, near Highway 63 at this point, about to cross that area in the next couple of minutes. So if you are in between Tama and the Tama-Poweshiek County line along Highway 63, you are at most at risk at this moment.
What we also want to pass along a report for, this is from this same storm cell. Sports Director Scott Sable, obviously, we've got state basketball going on. And in the Norwalk area, actually, he's reporting several homes that have been damaged too. So we're going to start seeing more and more of these reports coming through. And in this particular unique case, Scott is not here in Cedar Rapids. He's actually there in this particular case. What we have right now live for you, though, is still on that southern storm. We've got the Sigourney City Cam pulled up right now. Something to also be mindful of is very frequent lightning. And we're seeing plenty of this, about 1 strike per second or two, looking back towards the south and west. The reason why I'm looking in this general direction is to see if we see any sort of lowering going on or anything in the distance that would suggest that there could be a tornado suggested with this system. And right now, at this particular time in Keokuk County, not so much, but the tornado warned cell is not far from you. It's down to the south and west of you, and right now it's in northwest sections of Wapello County. And so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Not to say that you can't get a rotating thunderstorm in your area, but a thunderstorm that will likely come in strong to severe with frequent lightning is something I would prepare for in pretty much all of Keokuk County.
Yes, that is that storm that we're tracking northwest of Ottumwa, moving to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour, maintaining intensity. A tornado warning continues for that area. Still showing signs of rotation. It's broad, similar to the storm in southern Tama and northern Poweshiek County. So let's take that storm out a little bit. By the way, the warning that did include areas southwest of Oskaloosa. That storm has since weakened, and the tornado warning no longer in effect. But this storm is certainly one that still poses a threat. So this takes us out about 45 minutes. Into the Dudley area at 6:42, Kirkville at 6:50, Martinsburg at 7:06, and Hedrick just after 7 as well. So that gets us into Keokuk County. And then Sigourney at 7:17. So as Kai was mentioning, it's a ways away still, but that potential is still there for that storm to maintain its strength and eventually threaten that area right near Sigourney. So that is one storm that we're watching. Second storm that we're watching, almost looks like there's some secondary development behind it, and that may actually be catching up with the storm. And in some ways that could be a good sign. It could interfere with the storm and actually get it a little bit weaker, but at this point it hasn't shown significant signs of that. The rotation continues for areas just south of Tama. So if you live in the Tama area, as we've been stressing, you need to be in shelter if you're on the southeast side of the city of Tama. So just about crossing Highway 63. If you are near, let's see if we can identify this road. That's the wrong tool, excuse me. If you are just near County Road E64, it looks like, and then passing up toward the Highway 30 area toward Gladstone and Long Point. That's about where this storm with a tornado is going to cross. So that's in the next 5 minutes or so. So if you're in any of those areas, you absolutely need to be in shelter. It's near Manet's Landing too, which is just south of Tama, small, probably unincorporated community or area. But if you're familiar with that area, that's the part of the storm that is particularly dangerous at this point. We haven't any recent reports out of Tama, I don't believe, Kai.
I've not seen much at this point in terms of what's been coming out of that particular storm cell right now. However, it's still a scenario where there's probably still a tornado in that thing. Just we have not had any confirmation that it's not there. Been looking at the Vinton City Cam as well, as we kind of look back to the south and west on that particular storm cell, where it's again a lot of frequent lightning at this point as this all goes towards the east-northeast. But there's not been any additional reports so far from what we've already mentioned, which is good news. However, this storm has a history of reports, dozens of reports actually, behind that. So it is still occurring, but at this point we're not necessarily seeing anything too different from what the storm has been presenting itself so far. So there's really no reason, Corey, to deviate from the messaging that's been out there, is that we've got a tornado warning out. The tornado is still likely on the ground at that point, as you've been pinpointing here on the velocity data close to the Tama area. So Tama, be advised of that. Be down in your safe area. Be down in the basement if you can. Meanwhile, farther down to the south, that storm cell is continuing on in terms of the tornado warning that it has, but they have not extended that thing up towards the north and east, at least not quite yet.
Yeah, and so the tornado warning does continue still for Tama until 7 o'clock. We do have a law enforcement agent that is on this storm, and that is sharing information with us through a service that we in the National Weather Service collaborate on. That's where they have seen power flashes, which is usually an indication of a tornado moving through an area of power lines. They saw that as it was crossing Highway 63. So it looks like that tornado is still on the ground. Rotation there has picked up once again. And so the areas to the north and east of this area just south of Tama, which is completely rain wrapped. You will not be able to see really, other than those power flashes, much indication of the tornado coming to you. So you need to be in shelter, and absolutely in this tornado warning in southeastern Tama County, which Poweshiek County, you've been cleared from this warning, but Tama County, this is a pretty serious situation at this point, as our velocity scope and velocity view showing some pretty strong rotation. Now it's getting a little bit confused in terms of, because of the intensity of the winds starting to flow into the storm, what exactly that particular storm direction is, but it's still rotating. And it's right near the Tama area, right about to cross Highway 30. Looks like we do have a new tornado warning. Same storm north of Ottumwa. National Weather Service recently noting that there has been an increase in the rotation in the storm, and thus they are concerned still about the production of a tornado from this storm near the Ottumwa area, but Ottumwa not included in this warning. It does include northern Wapello as well as far southeastern Mahaska. As Kai mentioned, it's likely moving to Keokuk County very, very soon.
Yeah, the Ottumwa City Cam is what you see there in the lower right-hand corner, and this is about the best vantage point that we're going to see of anything. And the real problem now is, obviously, there's a lot of lightning flashes going on. The problem is we just don't have daylight any longer, and it really makes this stuff pretty well impossible to see unless lightning is illuminating a tornado. So at this point, it does make things difficult to see. So we are getting at least some confirmation from the National Weather Service as well as law enforcement that's out there about what these storms have been capable of and what they've been doing. So on the Ottumwa area that you're seeing right here, that extension goes on, and it's a radar indicated rotation at this point because it's really tough to see on the ground what's going on just because it's dark now. Yep. So we'll keep on keeping an eye here on the Ottumwa City Cam, but eventually that's going to move up, as you mentioned, into Keokuk County, and it gets pretty scattered between Tama and Ottumwa, where things do not appear to be rotating much in those storms yet, but we'll have to watch those. And then there's still that Tama one, as you mentioned, that cell is trying to catch up from the back, and if that can happen, perhaps that can just interrupt the wind flow enough. The one city cam we're also keeping an eye on is the Vinton city cam, because if we do a storm track on that, Corey, that's going to put that probably up into Benton County here before too long, I would think.
Yeah, let's take a longer view of the storm track here. Put it right on where that rotation is, and at this point on radar, it's pretty strong rotation. I think the storm has cycled, as we call it, and has strengthened and will continue off to the northeast at this point. And so putting out about an hour or so from now, as Kai mentioned, that would take it into the Vinton area at about 7:20 or very close to it. Obviously, there's a little bit of wiggle room here because storms can deviate their motion a bit, especially supercell storms like this one. Sometimes they start to move a little bit to the right of the mean storm motion, and that can actually make the storm a bit stronger. So that is one thing that we'll be keeping an eye on. But communities like Vining, Elberon, Keystone, Van Horn, Vinton, and Shellsburg, you're all within the path of this storm. Whether or not you're in a tornado warning now, it's kind of irrelevant. This storm still very strong. Would not be surprised if the National Weather Service extends this warning very soon, because we are about 15 minutes from expiration. We're in the transition spot between National Weather Service offices here, and so it's going to be handed off to the Quad Cities for their responsibility, but they will be the ones that issue that warning. And again, expecting that probably to be a follow-up pretty soon, as this storm has shown no real indication of weakening in the near term, and in fact has shown some signs of strengthening.
Yeah, there were a couple of scans there where things got a little bit weaker, and then as you mentioned, things have started to recycle once again. There's one thing really important to kind of talk about between the tornado warnings that are in the viewing area, notice that source layer that you've got on the screen, observed versus radar. That means people have seen this thing that's been on the ground just to the east of Tama. So that's a very important delineation to make here between a radar indicated tornado as well as a spotter observed tornado too. So I think this is definitely going to be something that's the priority here going forward. Farther down to the south, obviously, we'll continue to keep an eye on that storm cell as well, because then it will be getting up eventually into the Keokuk County area. But that one, over the last 3 to 5 scans, has also started to weaken quite a bit. I do want to talk about storm reports, how we get them, and how you can also help us out with this too. So here's how to submit storm reports. We talk about these reports. So how do we do this? So make sure you include your description of where you're at, the location of where you're at, and only photos if safe in this particular case. So be sure that you connect with us in this particular regard, because it's very easy to do. You actually do this through the TV9 First Alert weather app. You can also do this by emailing weather@kcrg.com, or you can even contact your local National Weather Service office. These reports are all disseminated through a various chat program that we're all involved in here between us and emergency management and FEMA and the National Weather Service. We all share this data, so it all comes to everybody, so we really appreciate that. For hail reports, we've had 2 to 2.5 inch diameter hail reported in portions of central Iowa, and that can be an estimation, that can be a measurement, whatever you happen to have handy, or even an approximation. It could be an approximation like a walnut or a tennis ball. Flooding, we haven't had any reports of that. That's good news. But flooding reports are typically water covering the roadway and if there's any damage to the area. In terms of wind reports, down limbs or down trees, down power lines, and any roof damage that may have happened. And then tornado reports usually consist of, it could be as simple as rotation. It really could be, because that does help us quite a bit in these cases, especially when it's Doppler radar indicated and it's just too dark to see much. So that helps tremendously if you're seeing rotation in the area. Funnel clouds, tornadoes, or any sort of tornadic damage that comes through here. So the confirmed tornado that we've got right now, Corey, is still in the Tama County area.
Absolutely. If we go back to Max 1, you can see it pretty clearly here on our velocity scan. There you go to the outbound and inbound winds together. That's where the tornado rotation is. It's currently over mostly rural areas of Tama County. However, there are small communities in the path of this storm, especially near the Vining area. You need to be in shelter immediately. The storm is headed very near your area. If it doesn't pass directly over you, you're in pretty significant risk at this point. So Vining and Elberon, both in the immediate path of this storm, 6:53 in Vining. So you have just a couple of minutes before the storm approaches. And then 6:57 in Elberon. It's going to cross County Road E44. It's also going to cross County Road V18 over the next few minutes. And where those two roads meet is where Vining is, and that's where this storm has the potential to cause significant damage. The National Weather Service continuing that warning and continuing that there is a tornado on the ground as of even just a few minutes ago. So the risk there is pretty high. That's why we've been focused on this storm in particular. So folks that we've mentioned in those communities, you need to get into shelter. That is an immediate call to action, and I hope that you take it. The other warning that we have in effect is Mahaska and Wapello County. National Weather Service concerned for this area just northwest of Ottumwa, and I'm going to guess near Chillicothe is where we're going to see the rotation. Yep, there it is right there. Some indication there on reflectivity scan that maybe there's a little bit of damage taking place there. Look at the velocity or the debris detection, not seeing it there, but the rotation continues to be fairly strong there. And as well as in what we call a convergent pattern too, which could indicate a little bit of strengthening of this storm. So if you're in Chillicothe or areas just near Highland Center, that's something that you'll want to keep an eye out for. So we do have an extension of that warning that extends now into portions of Jefferson as well as Keokuk County. As we were mentioning, the storm would likely maintain its strength heading into that region. And so for that, we are under a warning until 7:30. That warning continues there. It's still radar indicated, but that is the storm that continues off to the northeast. We'll put a quick storm track on it. Assume, Kai, it's still moving at about 45 miles per hour?
Yep.
Okay.
No changes there.
That takes you past the Ottumwa Airport in short order. Then you get toward Martinsburg at 7:07 in southern Keokuk County, Sigourney at 7:18, so it's going to be pretty close to it. And then you get toward Harper at 7:28 and Keota, which I believe is actually in either far eastern Keokuk or western Washington, but it gets into that same region for that. And looks like we do have an extension of our tornado warning to the north, too.
I was just going to comment on that. That it's going to have to go into Vinton County at some point, just based on how that thing has been going here. So what I was just going to say before the warning came out is if you're in Vinton County, continue to be vigilant with the storm because it is coming right into your area. And it's one thing we've been monitoring here for a while. So the Vinton City Cam, I'm going to pull up here in the lower right-hand side of the screen so you can see it. This is looking back to the west-southwest here. And again, under the cover of night, it's so difficult to try and see where this tornado might be. There's been a number of times with the storm reports that people have mentioned this is kind of a rain-wrapped tornado. At some points, it's been more visual. At other points, it hasn't been. But I'm just going to have to be reliant here on the lightning in the Vinton area to just try and see what we can see, Corey, based on how things are going here. But that continues to be a strong storm, and this is continuing to move off towards the east. So if you were in the Vinton County area, be sure you are seeking your safe area. That is a basement or the lowest level that you've got. Vinton, we've got Vinton on the city cam there. 722 is what you've got, Corey, on the storm track. So again, we kind of have to be reliant on lightning in this particular case, unfortunately, to try and see what we can see. I'm going to control this a little bit here and try and move this back just a little bit farther to the north at the moment, too, because we might be able to get a better shot at it there.
Yeah, while you do that, I'm going to call out some of the cities that are on the storm track here. Elberon's still watching you. It's going to pass very close to your area. You need to be in shelter. Lots of lightning with this storm, too. That's notable. Vinton at 7:22, as Kai mentioned. Shellsburg at 7:30, and then Wildcat Bluff, a well-known recreation area out there at about 7:32. And then at this point, there's no reason to believe that this storm would necessarily lose its strength. And so areas of northern Linn County, particularly north of Highway 100, is where we would start to look for further downstream. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit there, but you do need to start planning, know where you need to go. And that would be toward the lowest level of your home. If you have shelter, take that. And then right within your interior room and the lowest level, whether that's a basement or the first floor of your home, either are great. Yeah, very strong storm situation there. We'll put on the velocity track as well to see where exactly. Yep, still showing very significant rotation just near the Elberon area, just south of Cloutier as well. A community that we haven't called out yet this evening, but it's passing very near that area. And so if you're in the Cloutier area too, south of Dysart, right along Highway 21, in rural areas along that path, that's a dangerous place to be. And so you will want to be in shelter there as soon as possible. I believe Kai has our safety tips here coming out.
Yep, we're going to get to these here right now with the storm safety on tornado warnings. Make sure at the lowest level of your home, get under something sturdy if at all possible. Be sure and grab your bike helmet too, just something to protect your head. Cover yourself with blankets, pillows, and towels. Avoid windows, doors, and outside walls. If you don't have a basement, something small with an interior room, maybe a bathroom or a closet, something that does not have any windows to it. The one thing too about tornadoes is we do want you to be sure that you do not rely only on outdoor warning sirens to alert you, because these are moving very quickly, 45 to 50 miles an hour. And as soon as these warnings come out, we do want you to be in your location, especially now because we cannot see this stuff. It's dark now, so it's very difficult to see unless you see a lightning strike around. We wouldn't want you to be out in that. Lowest floor, away from windows, and be making sure that your head is covered. And again, don't rely only on outdoor warning sirens. I can't count how many times I've heard from a lot of folks that say, well, we take shelter when we hear the sirens, or we can't hear the sirens in our house. Well, if you can't hear the sirens in your house, then don't rely on them, because that's made for only outdoor usage only. Some of the storm reports that we have had have actually been rather impressive here tonight. We've had a lot going on here, and we continue to get more and more just pieces of information that have been coming into us about these storm reports here. So I do want to start back. This entire storm line has been back in southwest sections of Iowa earlier on, and when it got north of Creston, it really started to get pretty nasty. This was around the Orient area, and they had 2 to 2.5 inch diameter hail that came out of this particular storm cell. It all then continued north through the Des Moines area to the Winterset area first, and then south side of Des Moines, and now it continues on into our area.
Looks like, Kai, we just got some video from the Winterset area. So this is out of the TV9 viewing area, community southwest of Des Moines. Yeah, that's some pretty bad damage. That's right along the path of that tornado. Car pretty smashed up. Search and rescue operations continue in the area. According to the latest report, you can see 2x4 sticking out of the side of that garage. It's hard to tell exactly what kind of structure there, but it was pretty well flattened.
Looked like there was a truck almost just right there. You can see it right in the center.
Outbuilding. Oh, that looks like a basement.
That's
looks like
a
foundation.
That house is gone from what we can tell here. It's
been described by our friends at KCCR coverage partners out there as major damage in the area, and that video itself captures it. That is most of the home or structure swept off of a foundation. So
and
that's pretty significant.
The reason why that's important too is because that's the same storm cell that is up in our area right now. That is moving its way into the Vinton County area. It's in eastern Tama County now, but it has had a history of producing all sorts of damage here. So one of the most latest tornado reports that we have had come out was just south of the Tama area. And this was a tornado report of a cone tornado with power flashes, which was 4 miles north, which is close to the Tama area. So that's the same spot, Corey, that you've been pinpointing this entire time. Now, eventually, this is going to continue to move its way east into Lynn and Johnson County, but the severity there farther down to the south near the Williamsburg area is not as bad, but our main focus right now is definitely on that tornado warning that's happening in Vinton County.
Yes, and that's where we do have Vinton County tornado warning continues until 7:15, I believe, 7:30, excuse me. Garrison, you're in the path of this storm at 7:14, Vinton at 7:22. And then we also have Shellsburg at 7:30, Urbana, which is outside of the warning area, but yeah, that area in northern Lynn County, that will likely be downstream of this storm as well. Looks like we do have a new severe thunderstorm warning.
It includes Cedar Rapids.
Yep, meteorologist Jan Ryherd, welcome, joining us for the evening as well. Yeah, it does include a good portion of Iowa, as well as southeastern Vinton, most of Lynn County, and northwestern Johnson County. Goes until 7:30. It's for an area of quarter-sized hail, which has been observed, it looks like, by spotters. This storm also moving off to the northeast, so let's take a look at that one as it moves into the Cedar Rapids metro. No tornado warning with this, but the risk for damaging hail is there. The eastern Iowa airports are out by the Fairfax and airport region of town about 7:10 to 7:14. Cedar Rapids at 7:22, Marion at 7:27. Springville and to the east of Marion at 7:38, and then Martell closer to 7:43. So that storm also the potential to produce some large hail, it looks like.
Manna Colony City Cam, as you can see there in the lower right-hand side of the screen, getting a pretty good thunderstorm at the moment. The view from the Cedar Rapids City Cam, looking back to the south and west, you'll see that there'll be some lightning in the sky here before too long, but Cedar Rapids still quite a ways out here before we wind up getting this storm in the area, probably another 10 or 20 minutes, but the severe thunderstorm warning does continue in this particular area, so we just want you to be aware of that. And this is mainly for hail and for some wind. This is not a tornado warning at Cedar Rapids. It is moving northeast at 60, and again, penny-sized hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds possible. The lightning's been really frequent on these two, as this is all moving its way up towards the north and east. So the active tornado warnings that we have one active severe thunderstorm warning in the viewing area. That's for northeast Iowa County, northwest Johnson County. Folks in Iowa City, if your weather radios went off, this is for northwest Johnson County. The Iowa City metro area is not involved in this particular severe thunderstorm warning, nor is North Liberty, but the northwest corner of Johnson County is, and ultimately Fairfax, Cedar Rapids, Hiawatha, and Marion as well. So just be advised of that, but we also have this tornado warning, Corey, that's going on in Vinton County.
Yeah, the National Weather Service just updated it too to say that it's currently being characterized as a tornado capable of, severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. So the existence of a tornado hasn't been reported recently enough by the storm spotters to justify calling it observed storm at this point. As Kai mentioned, though, very difficult to observe a tornado at this time of night. It's this area right here where we're seeing that potential for damage just north of Elberon. Looks like it has started to pass north of there. So between Elberon and Dysart on Highway 21, and then passing to the areas north of there. That's where we have immediate concern for a tornado. Secondarily, down toward Jefferson and Keokuk County, as well as parts of Wapello County, north of the Ottumwa area, but passing very near the Sigourney area. Another storm that could potentially produce a tornado. Rotation, this is a little bit far away from the radar site right now. It's kind of between the radars in Des Moines and the Quad Cities, but still rotation evident there. And that's why that tornado warning continues as well. So folks in that area, we haven't talked about this storm in a little while, so let's put a fresh storm track on there. Moving it to the northeast. That gets you toward Highland Center at 7:01. Martinsburg, we've mentioned you a couple of times, still in the path of the storm at 7:10. Ollie at 7:21, as well as Harper at 7:31, and then Keota at 7:36, the golf course near Keota at 7:37. You can see lots of lightning still prolific on our Ottumwa City Cam.
The thing about this too as well for viewers that may be joining us from KYOU down in the Ottumwa area, the Ottumwa area is not involved in the current tornado warning, at least the metro area of Ottumwa. So northern sections of Wapello County are involved, obviously, as Corey has just mentioned to you. The situation in Ottumwa is going to get a whole lot quieter here in about 15 to 20 minutes. Right now there's just a little light rain in the Ottumwa area because we can still see pretty well on the city cam. Looking back towards the west, yes, there is some lightning, but there's nothing additional that's severe off to your west right now. So I do think Ottumwa, you're going to be in a pretty good spot here before too long. There's one more storm cell back towards Albia that still may come through, but otherwise that's not being severe warned at this time. So the folks that have been tuning us in the Ottumwa area, we appreciate you tuning into our storm coverage tonight as well. But for the good part of this, I think that Ottumwa, you're now going to be in a pretty good spot going forward here.
Yeah, the good news is that that second sort of line of storms that stretches from just near the Tama area now, south to west of Ottumwa. None of those have had severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings on them for some time. There was one that was in Des Moines, but those storms on the backside not having the same access to the ingredients that we have for the storms in the front. And that's not too uncommon. That happens a lot. Usually the southernmost storm can be the strongest, or the forwardmost storm can be the strongest too. Same story, all of our tornado warnings at this point are radar indicated, which is of course a good sign in a way, but also it doesn't mean to not take it seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
We still want you to very much treat these warnings the same you would as if we were showing you a picture of a tornado right now. So areas of Vinton County, that's the big story right now, is that tornado warning. Fortunately, the end of our storm threat is coming. It will eventually arrive behind these lines of storms because things shut off pretty quickly, which is the good news with these storms. We'll put it onto a slightly sharper view there of northern Benton County. Folks in Vinton, the storm is pretty close to you. So you need to get into shelter if you haven't already. In fact, the most dangerous part of the storm is pretty much headed straight toward Vinton, 721. You can see our Vinton City Cam, lower right portion of the corner of your screen. It's hard to get a picture. Obviously, we're just relying on lightning flashes, which is why this time of night we tell you not to go outside and try to look at it any time of day, really, but especially at night because a tornado can sneak up on you. And even if it's just on radar right now and not reported, doesn't mean that it can't be reported or produce a tornado in any moment. Exactly
right, Corey. No question about it. Let's run down some of those tornado warning safety tips as well here. We'll do that on the full screen. And so things about storm safety, especially in this particular environment, we could see a lot better back at about 3 or 4 o'clock today than we can right now. And so when you've got severe weather coming through the area, make sure you're in the lowest level of your home. Sometimes that's not a basement. It might be the first floor. If it's the first floor, then a closet or a bathroom, a small interior room is going to be a situation where you'd want to be in. Get underneath something sturdy. You can protect your head with a bike helmet. Cover yourself with blankets, pillows, and towels to avoid getting hurt by anything, and avoiding windows, doors, and outside walls. That's obviously a very good idea. We always say put as many walls between you and the storm as you possibly can. And a second thing about tornado safety that we've already covered above, don't rely only on those outdoor warning sirens to alert you. We've got smartphones now. We've got apps now. We've got weather radios now. And that all comes together. We've got television and radio, obviously, too, to get you what you need to know in terms of tornado warnings. So we don't want you to be reliant on those outdoor warning sirens. If you're playing a sport, obviously, then yes, that's how you're going to get the warning. But the vast majority of us are in our homes right now, or perhaps we're in a restaurant right now. And so those outdoor warning sirens are not going to be able to alert you when you're inside of a structure. And so we'll continue to watch these tornado warnings carefully, Corey.
Meteorologist Jan Reihard, you heard her voice earlier. She joins us as well this evening. Jan, why this storm system? Why this intensity this early in the season? It's only March 5th. It's not out of the question, but it's not common this time of year.
It certainly isn't common that we would see severe weather, but it's, like you said, it's not unheard of. It's definitely happened before. And right now what we're dealing with basically is there's just a lot of energy in the atmosphere. So if you look at where the storms are right now, obviously continuing to push through eastern Iowa, what we're going to do is add on a layer here to our radar. And basically this is showing you energy that the storm is feeding off of. Here is what those storms are looking at right now. So as they move through the area, they're moving towards that red area for us, and this is what is going to be kind of feeding these storms here as we head through the next short while. So obviously back here, not a lot of the storm energy left to feed off of, but as those storms continue to push here into eastern Iowa, there's a lot more energy left back for these storms to continue to feed off of. So even as we start to lose, obviously the daytime heating, normally a lot of times, you know, we talk about how things kind of die down after we lose the sun, but overall there's still plenty of energy with all the heat, all that moisture that we had around today, still plenty for these storms to work off of here as we head through the rest of the evening. So we're going to continue to see these still kind of firing up over the next couple of hours. That's why we have those watches continuing to be in effect here through the evening. That's why, you know, days in advance we've been letting you guys know that there could be some of these storms lasting into the later evening hours. So again, as those storms continue to progress to the east, we'll put those storms back on for you. You can see they're still moving into that environment of what we would consider favorable storm development. So we're still going to be looking at these storms able to be a little bit stronger, a little bit longer. And so again, dealing with those potential for additional tornado warnings or those additional severe thunderstorm warnings where we could still see some damaging winds and stuff like that. So even as we lose the heating of the day getting into the night, again, we still have plenty for these storms to work with. And that is, as Corey and Kai have mentioned here, that's when we get to more of those dangerous times, just because we can't see what exactly is going on out there. We're relying on lightning strikes to light up the sky for us. And we don't have as many spotters out typically because it's just not safe for them to be out. So a lot of stuff, you know, we'll deal with more maybe radar indicated warnings, but that is certainly not something to discount. You know, weather radar is a very powerful tool, and so those radar indicated warnings, they're issued for a reason. They're there for a reason, and that's why we do obviously take those into account here.
Thanks, Jan, for the explanation on all this, because it is a very early season event. And there is enough energy to get these storms to go. One thing we are going to pay attention to here is the tornado warning that is currently ongoing in Vinton County. This is our Vinton City Cam Live. I've been monitoring this to try and see if we can see anything illuminated by the lightning here tonight. There's just tremendous amounts of lightning in the atmosphere right here with this particular storm cell. It is knocking on the doorstep in Vinton right now. And this is a tornado warning that is radar indicated. I'm going to pinpoint in right here on the actual area. It's in the Garrison area right now, leading edge of the storm. So that's a place where you want to make sure that you are in your safe area. Farther downstream in the Vinton area, that's another case here where we are going to have this severe thunderstorm start pushing into your area too. So I'm going to do a storm track on this, and this is going to push it off towards the north and east. We're going to do this for about the next 30 minutes. Places around Center Point, even though you're not officially in this warning yet, you want to pay attention to it too, because this is all going northeast here. So Vinton, it's happening very close to about 5 to 10 minutes from now before it gets into city limits. Urbana close to 7:30. By the time we get to Center Point, about 7:33, and then in the Walker area a little bit farther on down the line. One thing that we've been talking about tonight as well is how fast these storms have been moving. They have not showed any sign of slowing at all, and it's one of those deals where these can come up on you very quickly if you're not watching for them. So we'll continue to watch the Vinton City Cam over here, Corey, to see if we can find anything that's going on in the atmosphere. But I got to tell you, it's difficult to tell because it is dark out there and this thing has been rain wrapped at times.
In the matter of a little bit of housekeeping, the tornado warning that was in effect for portions of Wapello counties, that was just the area north of Ottumwa, that warning has been expired. So it will drop off our radar view here in a second. Keokuk and portions of Jackson County, I believe, still included in that. So it's this storm to the south that we're still watching the potential for a rotation. You can still see it there. It's at the mid-levels here where the radar beam is reaching, because it's kind of in between two radar sites, but just about to cross Highway 149 south of Sigourney. That would be its next move. So communities in that path include areas to the northeast, such as Lancaster, as well as Talleyrand and Statler Woods at 741. In the lower right corner of your screen, you're seeing a picture from a storm spotter provided to us, and thanks to them, of the wall cloud associated with this storm. So they got enough lighting from a piece of lightning, but there's the rotating portion of the storm. It doesn't look like it's producing a tornado in that picture that we can see. Of course, it could be rain wrapped too, but definitely an ominous looking cloud formation, of which is the reason why there is a tornado warning for this portions of Keokuk County.
The other part about this too is with this particular storm cell, when you go back to an image like that, the reason why it's called radar indicated is, as you just mentioned, in that still shot, nothing has dropped down to the ground yet. But it's no reason to say that it can't do that. And it could have come up and down already by now, and it's very difficult to tell. I do want to focus in. You see the Sigourney City Cam. There's tremendous heavy rain in the area, so it is very difficult to see now at the time, because certainly when that photograph was taken, there was no rain falling on that particular spotter. But it gets very difficult when you have sheets and sheets of rain going on here in this particular case. Let's also jump over into the Lynn County area as well, because this storm is eventually going to get up into the Cedar Rapids and Marion areas. Here's our Marion City Cam as we were looking back towards the west here. You can almost kind of see a leading edge there of a cloud formation coming into the Marion area, but right now it appears to be more or less a straight line wind scenario where it's about 60-mile-an-hour wind is what the severe thunderstorm warning is being issued for. It's a bit of a shelf cloud that I'm trying to discern there on the Marion City Cam as this is working its way up into town. And again, it's moving very quickly, and so the storms themselves don't actually need to produce much wind from their own to actually wind up causing some problems. And so it's moving northeast right now. Latest storm motion is 60 miles an hour coming into the area. And you can almost see, what do you think of this, Corey? Right in the center of that shot.
Yeah,
looks like there's a leading edge there, so probably a bit of a shelf cloud. If it were daytime, we'd probably have a whole lot of pictures of this, but obviously being at night, it's much more hard to see. And it's just something we want you to be aware of this severe thunderstorm warning as it's moving up now into Lynn County too.
I want to toss it over to meteorologist Jan Reinhard, who has something sent to us from our news crews in central Iowa. We're going to do that real quick, where she had a report of large hail. Jan?
Yeah, Kai, you just mentioned that we have, those storm report pictures coming in a lot of times if it's daytime. Well, this is a picture we got sent in from the Des Moines area of some hail. So you can see, obviously, maybe quarter size or even slightly larger than that with this hail that was coming in from the Des Moines area. Again, those storms are the ones that are progressing towards us here at this time. So just kind of a little bit of a heads up of, maybe something that you might expect along with that threat for damaging wind, as well as those few tornadoes that we've been dealing with also. If you have pictures to send in, be sure you do those. You can head over to the KCRG First Alert Weather app. You can also do that at kcrg.com/unews. Here's a couple of the things just that we do look for. If you have hail reports, wind reports, any flooding, probably not today, or those tornado reports. We love pictures, but only if it's safe to do so. We love those reports, but again, only if it's safe to do so. You can, again, get those to us either by email or on social media. There's a couple different ways that you can do that, but that way we have more information to give you. We rely on those storm reports to be able to give the public more information. So certainly something we like, but also more importantly, be sure that you are safe. So if you are in any of these warnings right now, that is your first priority.
Thank you, Jan. That's a very good point. We appreciate any help that viewers can provide us. But if unable, we also obviously would prefer that you stay safe, just like Jan said. The tornado warning for northern Vinton County, centering on the Garrison and Vinton area. Rotation has picked up in this storm. Meteorologist Kai O'Meara is repositioning the Vinton City Cam. Perhaps we can get that up and take a look as we look off toward the most intense portion of that storm. But again, we're relying on lightning in the lower right corner. Yeah, you can see the base of the storm, maybe just a little bit to the left.
That's how things are looking right now. So we're positioning the camera back down to the west-southwest just so we're able to see that leading edge. And it kind of like what we're seeing out here on the radar, it looks like it's whatever is in there is probably rain wrapped. It's just tough to tell because looking at the Vinton camera, we're getting as much light as possible. Unless I saw something right there in the center, it's very difficult to tell what's in there. But you need a lot of lightning to look, and You only get a half a second to try and analyze that when a lightning bolt comes by.
Yep.
So it gives you an indication, though, that you're in for some rough weather in the Vinton area. How long do you think that may last here, Corey, in the Vinton area as these things have been moving?
Well, they have been moving about 45 to 55 miles per hour, so the worst of the storm will be over quickly. It's not very wide, just a couple miles wide, so it would be maybe a 5 or 10 minute period. Given the width of the storm and the width of the area we're most concerned about with the rotation. That's including Vinton at 723, so about 10 minutes away. So if you live in that Vinton, Shelburne area, generally north of Shelburne, but near Vinton, right in line with this storm. And Garrison too, it's right on your doorstep. You both need to be in shelter. Cheney at 732 and then Urbana extending out of this. But again, there's no indication yet that this storm has weakened. And so we would expect additional warnings to be issued as this storm continues off to the northeast at 45 miles per hour. So yes, very serious situation continues in portions of the TV9 viewing area, and we urge you to seek shelter into your room, lowest floor, if possible.
Yep, let's run down some of those tornado warning safety tips now. We'll go ahead and go full screen on it for storm safety. And so especially at night, this is when things get really vulnerable. Making sure at the lowest level of your home, underneath something sturdy, making sure you're protecting your head as well, making sure you're covering yourself with blankets, pillows, and towels. You don't know when you get storms like these coming in. As soon as that tornado warning comes out, if there is a tornado warning in there, you just don't always know how strong a possible tornado can be. And so you might as well prepare for it just in case with covering yourself with blankets, pillows, and towels, avoiding windows, doors, and outside walls. And of course, the big question we get at school talks a lot, what if we don't have a basement? Well, a small interior room, such as a bathroom or a closet. And another point I think is worth driving home here is the fact that we just don't want you to rely solely on outdoor warning sirens to alert you, because when you're inside, the outdoor warning system is not designed to alert you at that point. They're designed for outdoor warnings, baseball games, football games, other sports activities, or if you're out running errands, that's what those are there for. The indoor stuff, weather radios, cell phones, television and radio, that's what we like you to rely on in terms of those.
If you could pull up the Vinton City Cam again.
Sure.
If we could go large box Vinton City Cam, smaller box pinpoint Doppler radar, just watch the storm there. Yeah, that could be our most dangerous part of the storm we're watching coming into Vinton with a bit of a lower in there. I'm going to shift it a little bit to the left and wait for another flash. I'm going to shift it a little bit to the left and wait for another flash.
That's really what we're down to, Corey. I mean, it's tough to tell with the lightning that's going on. You need the lightning in a way to try and see what we have.
Yeah, it is very tough to tell, but a very ominous scene there in Vinton, one that you need to take very, very seriously in the Vinton area as rotation continues. We'll shift one more to the right and wait for a flash. You can kind of see
right in the center.
Yeah, right in the center. If you could draw right there where we're looking.
Yep, absolutely. I can get in on that. So it's going to be right in the center. If this is an actual thing going on, right, it's right in here. If that's where this thing is going to drop, it's right there in the center of the screen. And so that looks like it might be a wall cloud to me. It's reliant on lightning, but it looks like that might be a wall cloud to me, just approaching the Vinton area from the west-south. Was that a power flash that just came in there? I'm not sure.
Yes.
It looks like it was.
Yeah.
I think we just caught a power flash there. So that might be it right there.
Could be. It's either that or damaging winds. Either way, we are losing some transmission lines there from that area. Yeah, pretty dangerous situation unfolding just near the Vinton area. So you definitely need to be in shelter in Vinton. Don't go out and try to catch it yourself. We have had plenty of reports of power outages in the area, about 13,000 customers statewide between Mid-American and Alliant. So that will be a concern going forward. But the immediate concern is this area very, very near Garrison, between Garrison and Vinton. Yeah, I believe Kai was right.
So in the center of the screen, as we get the illumination there with the lightning, and there's a definite lowering there, and it may be, as you mentioned, Corey, a rain wrap situation. Whatever is showing up right here, this is just west of Vinton. That matches radar. Okay, so it's just west of Vinton if it's in there. All right, I'm going to clear that out, and let's try and kind going to try and pan this off to the right slightly here because I can see that the rain is going to be coming down here in Vinton. It's going to be too tough to see what we're doing, but
Yeah, we may lose the view here based on that rain that's moving in, but
I think that was a power flash though about 2 minutes ago.
Yep.
So something's going on in there, and it's moving right into Vinton now. Yeah, Jan, go ahead.
Kind of on that note, I just got a picture sent in from Katie of this exact storm that we're watching right now from earlier on. So that's where we were seeing those tornado reports of that large damaging tornado on the ground. This coming in from the Kellogg area. So that's very near Newton. So again, more into central Iowa, but this is what the storm was doing earlier on this evening, and it has pretty much held its strength as it's been moving through the area. So this is kind of what we're looking at a little bit of what the storm was. You can see that lowering there. Again, probably that rain-wrapped tornado at least somewhere in there. Obviously can't see super well, but you can see some pretty good storm structure. It's a pretty healthy storm at this point, and it's pretty much held its strength as it's been moving through the area. So what we're seeing right now on our Vinton City Cam obviously is not something that we can tell a lot with, but that's where it has been. It looks like
Yep.
maybe we have this a video of it too.
This is actually from near the Tama area. You can see a funnel that moved through. This is near Highway 30. This was provided to us again by our coverage partners at KCCI. Obviously, cell phone video of a tornado taking place there. And this is the same exact storm as Jan was mentioning. It has maintained its strength, still produces or has the potential to produce a tornado very near the Vinton area. And that's the area that we're most concerned about now for continued activity like this.
That was another flash, Corey.
Yeah, if we could switch off the video and go back to the Vinton City Cam. I mean, it's hard to identify. Everything is very, very rain wrapped. So that's why it's an especially dangerous situation. But in the lower right portion of the screen, you can see the two areas, or the area of rotation that's broader. And it's these two areas that I'd be most concerned about, very near Vinton, where I'm pointing my arrow there. And then another one further to the northwest that had just crossed Highway 218. A couple of areas of gate-to-gate shear, as they call it, areas of red and green right next to each other that could be producing a tornado in the Vinton area. Looks awfully dark that direction, so I think we did lose power to parts of the immediate area. It's usually a little bit brighter than that.
Still searching on this, and I think that the photograph that Jan showed actually carries a lot of value here because when you saw the tornado that was in that earlier photograph, it really just kind of looked like it just sat down and almost had just kind of a wall shape to it, and we saw that earlier about 5 minutes ago before it started raining so heavily in the Vinton area. Now it's almost impossible to see any details. We're going to continue to try, but it's almost impossible now to see much on the city cam. But earlier when we had those power flashes that we saw, it had that structure to it. It had that same structure that it had in Kellogg.
And as expected, the tornado warning has been extended, does include now portions of Benton, Buchanan, and Lynn counties, does not include the Cedar Rapids area. Cedar Rapids still under a severe thunderstorm warning at this point, but this is for the tornadic storm that is very near Vinton and passing close to the Walker area very soon. It's going to cross Interstate 380. Let's see, it's between about Center Point and south of Brandon is where that storm will cross and then move up toward the Walker area after that. It is moving at 45 miles per hour right near the Vinton area. We'll take it on storm track. That gets you to Cheney at 732, Urbana at 734. We've called you out a couple of times here. Walker at 742, community on northwest Lynn County, Troy Mills as well at 748. So if you are in those tornado warning areas, it's very important that you seek shelter immediately. The storm moving quickly at 45 miles per hour, and it's the area right near Vinton that is still of most concern with this storm, still producing some pretty significant rotation, not unlike what we saw in the middle of summer where we had a storm after dark in the middle of July, still produced significant rotation after hours beyond when you think it might, but there is still enough energy, as Jan pointed out earlier. We've still got the ingredients. We've still got the wind shear, just buckets of wind shear out there. And it's kind of in the time of night where wind shear actually increases just a bit. And so there's a kind of time right between about 6 and 9 o'clock at night where you can get an increase in wind shear right before we lose the energy thanks to the sun going down.
Yep.
And that's, I think, what we're kind of still seeing. And just this storm, having had the sustained rotation for now nearly 3.5 hours at least, those are all factors playing into why this is a particularly dangerous situation for parts of Buchanan as well as northern Lynn and northeastern Vinton County. Vinton's still very much in the danger zone.
It is. And, oh, go ahead, Jan.
One of our viewers, I'm catching up on a couple of different Facebook comments here. Robin says, sounds like a train is going through Vinton right now. So that would also be an indication, at least of some strong winds, if not, obviously, now that we have that kind of double tornado warning there. So just kind of what the viewers are saying in the Vinton area right now. So again, if you are in that area, time to seek shelter if you have not already done so.
I think you can kind of see it on the edge of this area where we're concerned about rotation. Sometimes that portion of the storm can bow out a little bit, and that's where the strong winds likely coming through the Vinton area. Did see a message on social media as well about that. So at least a couple of eyes, separate sources saying that. So in groups, it's a little bit more reliable there. So yes, Vinton still, if you don't see a tornado, which would be obviously the best outcome, strong winds, heavy rain, still large hail possibility at times too.
Let's go over real quick for the remainder of the TV9 viewing area as well. The tornado watch that has been issued, a little bit has been trimmed back now out by Ames and Des Moines, which is good news. It just gives an indication that once this line goes through, that's it. That's the event after this. So the tornado watch is out. It goes officially until 11 o'clock this evening here, and the Weather Service is really good about trimming back some of those westernmost counties as well. And this is the event that we have, and this is the first time we've run any sort of pinpoint futurecast on here, but this is what it looks like it'll do here for the remainder of the night. This is pretty much the line as it pushes by the area, which is good news. And if you're looking farther down the line here, especially towards the Dubuque area, say about 7:30, 8 o'clock, you're going to start seeing additional thunderstorms start pushing up into your area. And then really, once we get to about 9 or 9:30, a lot of this activity is off to the east at that point. So in between now and then, we still have this tornado warning that is out for portions of Vinton County, northwest Lynn, as well as portions of Buchanan County as well, and far southeast sections of the Blackhawk County area too. So just keep that in mind going forward here. This is what we have outside right now on the Cedar Rapids City Cam. Pea-sized hail was reported by Lynn County EMA in the area. We have not heard anything that's been any larger than that in the Cedar Rapids area, which is certainly some pretty good news. And the other thing we can pass along to you is that the tornado warning has been expired for Keokuk County. So we just have the one active tornado warning now for portions of Vinton, northwest Lynn, southern sections of Buchanan, and southeast sections of Blackhawk as well. Now, if you are in a tornado warned area, get yourself to the lowest level of your home underneath something sturdy. Protect your head as well with blankets, pillows, and towels. Avoid windows, doors, and outside walls. And of course, if you don't have a basement, you find a small interior room, such as a closet or a bathroom, to try and help keep yourself safe during times like these.
Because the tornado warning has been expired for Keokuk County, our coverage partners at KYOU and Ottumwa will be leaving us and joining regular programming. However, storm coverage will continue here on KCRG-TV9. We're still covering a tornado warning in effect for portions of Buchanan, Lynn, and Vinton counties, as well as a severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Johnson and Lynn counties. Those are the two storms that we have our eyes on at this point, the two storms that are currently under warnings. They both go until, I believe, 8 o'clock for the tornado warning, and then the severe thunderstorm warning goes until 7:30. That's for the potential of 60-mile-per-hour winds at penny-sized hail. Obviously, the tornado warning is top of mind at this point, with the potential to produce damage of a tornado, or at least strong rotation indicating that potential.
The Vinton area right now on the city cam, it doesn't show a whole lot different from what it was showing a little bit earlier. For the most part here, the worst of the storm, as you had mentioned, is kind of out of the Vinton area, but pushing more towards now Interstate 380, be south of the Brandon exit here right now. So that is something to be mindful of. This is then moving its way off towards the north and east. Let's pinpoint in here as to what part of the interstate this may be affecting here, between which mile markers. So north of Center Point, through the Urbana area into the Cheney area. These are areas that you need to be downstairs. You need to be in your safe area as this continues. There's a new severe thunderstorm warning. Let's check that out. That's been issued just down the line from this one. And this is for eastern sections of Lynn County and almost all of Jones County, about the northwest half of Jones County here. Yeah, it would include Anamosa and Monticello. And then farther up towards the north, you can see just the southeast tip there of Delaware County that is involved. But this is the tornado warning that we're on the air for you live right now. And this is the only storm right now that has a tornado warning on it, which is the good part about all this. So that's at least the silver lining. This is about the least that we have had in terms of tornado warnings tonight, which is great news. This all continues to move off towards the north and east. Radar indicated at this point. Again, we had that photograph that Jan showed from back at Kellogg that did show that thing going through, at least to the point where we saw almost what looked like a wall type of structure to it. But this is all going east-northeast, and it's going rather rapidly at this point. So this is what this is being issued for, going off towards the north and east. So southern sections of Buchanan County, northwest sections of Lynn County, as well as northeast sections of Vinton County. I said southeast Blackhawk earlier. I was in error with that. There is no warning in the Blackhawk County area, but there's certainly some heavy rain coming down in the Waterloo Cedar Falls area. So we'll continue to watch this as it evolves. But this has just crossed Interstate 380, moving off towards the north and east quite quickly here. So Manchester, even though you're not in a warning right now, you are going to be likely seeing some pretty heavy weather yet between now and about 8 o'clock. And same story on the Delhi area. Earlier today, I had a chance, Corey, to do a live interactive chat with folks, and we had a lot of fog reports that came in around Highway 20. And you know, one of those things about the fog that we had, and it was a little bit cooler in that area, and that cool down may be playing a bit of a role here. We still have the wind shear, right? So we're still getting some pretty healthy storms, but that cooler air has, I think, kind of helped us a little bit here. But as you mentioned, that wind shear is still really strong, and so that's why these are still able to maintain, even in spots today that barely got into the 50s earlier.
Yeah, for sure. I think that probably is playing a factor, which is, of course, great news. Meteorologist Jan Reichert has a picture submitted to us from a viewer. What are we looking at?
Yeah, this is from the Belle Plaine area. I would argue probably a wall cloud here from, again, that same storm we're talking about that's moving through Vinton right now, the one that was in the Newton area and the Des Moines area before that. It's just been a very strong storm system moving through. You know, kind of can't see the ground exactly there as the landscape kind of cuts in, but looking like, again, a pretty strong storm system, a pretty mean looking storm system moving through the area. So again, all we can do is kind of show you the pictures we're sent in, show you what we can on our CityCam networks when we have those lightning strikes, but certainly looking like a strong enough system, and with those warnings, those radar indicated warnings, enough that folks want to be taking this one seriously.
Did get a report also, Jan, from Ely. This was a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust that came through. And so that's why the severe thunderstorm warning has also been issued for Lynn County, and this continues on down the line too for portions of Jones County, because this has not necessarily had a whole lot of hail with it, but it has had a measured wind gusts of 60 miles an hour. That's considered severe criteria. On the hail side, looks like we've only had one report, and that was at Lynn County EMA, and that was a pea-sized hail. But of course, that's the only report that we've had, at least on the hail side so far. But on the wind side, that 60-mile-an-hour gust certainly does justify the severe thunderstorm warning in Lynn County.
Yeah, and as we expected, that hail would kind of be the secondary or third biggest threat of the day, behind damaging winds and the potential for a few tornadoes, which that has basically played out for the most part here in eastern Iowa. Central Iowa, they got a little bit more of that energy to generate storms that could sustain larger hailstones that would cause damage. Here in eastern Iowa, though, we're watching this storm near the Walker area. It'll be there in about 9 minutes. That storm for Vinton County, that warning continues with an area of rotation embedded within this storm that has heavy rain. You're not going to be able to see the storm coming, other than the lightning increase that you'll see as it approaches. But folks near Walker at 7:41, Spencer's Grove a few minutes before that at 7:35, Monty at 7:53, and Robinson at 7:55. That area of rotation right now crossing Interstate 380. And so that is obviously a hazard for travelers down that direction. Take a look at the Independent CityCam as it approaches from the southwest in your lower right corner. But the bigger story obviously is still that potential for rotation, still there, still valid, and still justifying this tornado warning.
And we would really kind of like to see some other storms join up with this, just something to kind of interrupt the winds a little bit, if at all possible. So right now we just have not seen that. So the Independent CityCam, I turned it back around towards the south and west a little bit here, so you're able to see this. That's Highway 150 that comes into Independence there on the lower right-hand corner. So we're looking down at the storm, but we're also seeing just a lot of rain and lightning in between where the actual rotation would be. It's still quite a ways south of Independence yet. You got to go all the way down to 380. So we're likely not to see a whole lot on the Independence City Cam, but there is going to be some pretty good rain that comes into Independence here before too long. Actually, right about now, it'll likely start up. So that's just something to be mindful of. And you can see just by all the cars that are out there tonight, there are people on the roads. There are people out doing things on a Saturday night, which is why we're on air with you to just be sure that everybody is made aware of the situation. It's a very early season severe weather event, Corey, that we've got here. So it kind of comes up really quick. Normally we wait a little bit later in March or even April, but this one, all the ingredients were in place to bring some pretty heavy weather to the area, and that's what we're seeing right now. But the good part about that is this appears to be the only tornado warning that we have in the viewing area at this moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct, and one of only 2 warnings completely. Let's pull out and look at the entire eastern Iowa region. It's where we have a tornado warning for portions of Buchanan, Lynn, as well as Benton, and then a severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Lynn, as well as Jones and southeastern Delaware County, far southwestern Dubuque County, I believe. That warning continues as well. So 2 storms of interest. Also kind of interested in the storm down here, watching on the tail end where it has shown a little bit of intensity lately. No immediate signs of concern, but something to keep an eye on, obviously, with the environment that we have. Meteorologist Jan Ryherd has been collecting viewer reports and pictures. Anything new back there, Jan?
Nothing new. I can go over some of the pictures we've seen a little bit here earlier, though. We got this one coming in from the Kellogg area, from Katy, again showing that same storm system, that same tornado warned storm that was moving through about the Newton area earlier, specifically in Kellogg. We've also had this one coming in a little bit closer to home from the Belle Plaine area, again showing us kind of that wall cloud formation. Remember, if you have pictures to send in, you can do that on the KCRG First Alert Weather app. You can also do that at kcrg.com/unews. But please be sure that it is safe to do so before you do that. This one even earlier in the day from Adam coming in for some hail as well. Looks like we just got a new severe thunderstorm warning, if you guys want to take that one.
Yeah, large severe thunderstorm warning issued for the line of storms trailing from that tornado warning. Kind of includes that storm I was pointing out west of Marengo. It goes until, let's get the latest information here. It actually does go until 8 o'clock. It's moving to the east at 50 miles per hour. They're expecting the threat of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, as well as some quarter-sized hail potential with this storm. It's just kind of, again, the extension of that line all the way down through Benton County and off to the east. So we'll take it off to the east and put a storm track on it. Center point at 736, Hiawatha from 747. So the secondary line of storms approaching the Cedar Rapids metro area toward the end of this hour. Marengo at 750, Cedar Rapids at 752, and then the Amanas around just after the 8 o'clock hour, eventually reaching Anamosa near 813, and then that line will extend all the way down to Swisher at about the same time. So still severe thunderstorm for a good portion of Benton, Lynn, Johnson, and Iowa counties.
And just to avoid confusion too, because we have got an overlapped warning going on here for portions of Lynn County. So there's actually 2 warnings on top of each other here for eastern Lynn. I think the bottom line is that the severe thunderstorm warning continues till 8, and let's just leave it there, just based on how this thing has overlaid itself here. So places like Central City, and then you get just to the east there of Cedar Rapids are actually in the same severe thunderstorm warning. Now the other one did verify with a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, and I'm in the process of pulling up the Hiawatha City Cam to gain some control on this and look back around towards the west. But given this is a severe thunderstorm warning and not a tornado warning, there's a good chance we're not going to see a whole lot, but it's definitely worth a try. We've got the camera there to at least take a look, but right now we're just not seeing a whole lot in the area that would even be too concerning in terms of a tornadic risk. But one thing you pointed out earlier, Corey, about the way that these systems kind of bulging a little bit is it seems like the straight line wind threat there with about a 60-mile-an-hour gust that came through Cedar Rapids, that may evolve into that one too, going up there into Buchanan County, the way that thing's kind of curling on radar a little bit.
Well, and we talked about it, that you could tell the path of the supercell storm that was long tracked, where this tornado warning still exists. That's the storm that has produced so much damage. But we were talking earlier about the potential for the storms behind it to catch up, and I think they are starting to do so. Now, this storm is still spinning, still rotating and ingesting untouched air in front of it that is allowing to maintain its tornadic strength. But the line to the south is that's what's reinforcing that, and as Kai mentioned, could lead to that merger that could eventually result in more of a damaging wind threat. But the tornado threat does continue, and these storms moving off to the northeast. So we'll take them on a larger view. So the leading edge of stronger storms that exist, both severe thunderstorm and tornado warned, and take them off to the northeast. So that takes you toward Anamosa at 7:38, as well as Dubuque by 8:33. In between, Manchester about 8, Earlville at 8:05, Epworth at about 8:16. So a lot of communities still in the path of these storms, especially, let's say, right between Highway 20 and Highway 151. That's where a lot of the worst of these storms are right now, and probably going to continue to be over the next little while. No warnings for a lot of these communities yet, but we're giving you the heads up for the potential for very strong storms, if not severe storms, over the next hour or so.
That's right, and our news department, we do have a crew heading to the Vinton area just to see what we can find out there about that area, just because of what we saw in the city cam and the history of that storm that came out of the Tama area too. And that's really the same one that passed just to the south of Des Moines that had a whole lot of damage with it. So we do have a news crew that's headed to the Vinton area to see what's going on in that particular area. It's the exact same storm cell that you've been pinpointing this entire time, Corey. So there have been some storm reports on this too over the past, say, 30 minutes or so, and it's mainly been in the form, the good part is, if we back up a little bit, it was back generally about a half an hour ago that we started to at least get a little bit of the reports to start coming down, which is good news because it's 7:38 now. The last real report we got on this was the continuation of the tornado warning. So that's good news in the sense that we have not seen anything additional, but it doesn't mean we can't see something else come through. And I think a lot of that, Corey, has to do with the fact that we've lost so much daylight too in between that entire time frame. So it makes it very difficult to figure out what's exactly going on in these particular storm cells. But with this setup that we have, it's really important to note too that in the severe thunderstorm warning, you'll notice that there's still that tornado possible portion that's in there for even Lynn and Johnson yet too. So it's one of those nights, just one of those nights where the wind shear is just that strong that stuff can happen, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Our viewer Michelle reporting power is out in the rural Urbana area. So again, that same storm system, if not a tornado, still dealing with very strong winds at least. So power outages reported with that storm. Yeah,
I believe that completely, and we actually had an additional report from the National Weather Service of a wind gust of an estimated 60 to 70 miles per hour in the Vinton area, or just very near it, just south. So that would be more toward the southern edge of the area that could have been producing a tornado. Yeah, some mean-looking storms out there for sure at this hour. Had a report also from the Vinton area of some 6-inch diameter tree limbs down, which is not insubstantial.
No.
Certainly indicates that we could have seen damaging winds in that area too. That jibes with the lack of power report that Jan said as well. Let's take a second to reset here. We're looking at 3 warnings right now. Tornado warning still in effect for portions of Benton, Lynn, and Buchanan counties. That is obviously the top of mind. They just updated that warning, still saying that it is capable of producing a tornado. It's about near Quasqueton or 11 miles southeast of Independence. So that's about where we're at right now. Has passed just to the north of the Walker area and is continuing through southeastern Buchanan County. Now, they haven't issued an extension to this, but the threat for rotation and the potential development of a tornado still exists there. And as they mentioned, the National Weather Service, that area just southeast of Quasqueton is definitely the one to watch the most at this point. We do have a new severe thunderstorm warning as well. Includes portions of southern Iowa. You can see it includes Mount Pleasant, Fairfield. They did just have a recent wind gust from the Fairfield automated observing station there of, that's north of
about 65 miles
an hour. Yeah, it's about
hour.
65 miles per hour. We're doing some math here, converting from metric to to normal units here. But we got a pretty strong wind gust in there in Fairfield, and so that's why they issued that warning. It goes until 8:30 for our friends in far southern Iowa. But the main focus still is this cluster of storms in the central portion of the viewing area.
There's been some history on that too, and we just want to go back to some of the storm reports here with this that are strictly in eastern Iowa that have been forwarded on. And again, we've got a crew on the way to the Vinton area, mainly because of the reports that we're hearing about, and also the fact that this occurred at 7:18, which would have been right when the time that storm came through there. About a 70-mile-an-hour wind gust that can damage stuff. So we do have a crew on the way to Vinton to survey what's going on there. Farther down the line, that's the same storm that caused some problems out in Tama County as well, and this was the cone tornado that happened south of Tama. So as Corey mentioned earlier, kind of just draw that line here, and this has generally been the storm path going up into northwest sections of Lynn County and then eventually farther down the line, as we've seen with that tornado warning. And it's got a whole other history of damage that's back in central and western sections of the state too. So there was another storm report. This was down in the Ely area. This was a train spotter that measured this right around the Ely area of about a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust just north of Ely, close to the Highway 30 area. So again, these storms are capable of this kind of stuff, and we want you to be aware of that going into the evening hours. The tornado warning does continue. It's the only tornado warning that we have right now.
Actually just had an extended
Just had an extension, didn't we? Go ahead, Jen.
Just extended it into southeastern Buchanan County, as well as Delaware County for us here at this point. Looks like
that'll include Manchester too.
Yep, until 8:30. So yeah, that does include the Manchester area. Right now, it's about 12 miles southeast of Independence. Is where kind of the center of that storm system is. Again, Manchester, Delhi, Delaware, Earlville, Greeley, Dyersville, Colesburg, all included in that. And we also have now a severe thunderstorm warning, a new severe thunderstorm warning off to the south there. So we'll zoom into that. That includes, let's see,
Johnson,
Delaware,
Keokuk,
yes,
Washington, Iowa. It's going to go till 8:30. And 60-mile-an-hour winds.
Yes, 60-mile-per-hour winds for that one. So again, Coralville, North Liberty, Tiffin, University Heights in the Iowa City area, Oakdale, all of you guys, time to seek shelter. Iowa City, Solon, anyone around the Lake McBride area, all of those areas are included in that new warning that has just been issued for us.
We'll start with the most northern one here with the latest tornado warning, and this is the one that includes Buchanan and Delaware County. So we'll pinpoint in tight here as to the leading edge of this rotation here. So there's the leading edge. It's just to the east of Quasqueton right now, and it's just about to cross the county line. Highway 13 just off towards your west in the Ryan area. Be aware of that as we're still watching this particular storm move into your area. The velocity is still there in terms of what we're looking at in terms of the rotating part of this thunderstorm. So this is still moving east-northeast up into your area. And these have been considerably fast-moving storm cells here tonight too. So this is moving off to the northeast at about 45 miles an hour. So Manchester, it's going to be in your area in about 10 or 15 minutes. Delhi in about 20 minutes. And this is just the rotating part of the storm that we're pinpointing. You may actually wind up getting some heavier rains right before that. Farther down towards the south then, we're still watching this storm here out of eastern Lynn County and then moving its way up towards the Monticello area. This is just about actually into Monticello right now, close to the Langworthy area. Overall, some heavy rain, some strong wind, and also some hail possible. This has a history of 60-mile-an-hour winds behind it. And then farther down to the south, this is the new severe thunderstorm warning that has come out. And this severe thunderstorm warning has been issued, goes until 8:30. And this one, Corey, is for portions of Iowa County, Keokuk, Johnson, and Washington counties as well. It's not a tornado warning, it's a severe thunderstorm warning. So as you mentioned accurately earlier, these back edge storms have really come around with some viciousness. This is the cold front itself pushing by right now.
Yeah, and it's a very sharp cold front too. We're going to see temperatures drop pretty quickly. I don't know if Kai, if you want to work on getting up that temperature map again, and we can take a look how fast it's been going. But we are certainly seeing some very intense storms, as Kai mentioned. Iowa City, even though you've already had a round of storms this evening, you're not done. There will be more coming in the next little while or so. We'll put a quick storm track on this one too. So it's a line of storms that's moving off to the northeast, and that gets you into the Iowa City area at 8:09, Kelowna at about 8:11, North Liberty, same time, sort of that whole corridor along Interstate 380 rather. West Branch at 8:24, and then toward Tipton by 8:36, which I believe is just outside of that area. But certainly these storms look to continue to pack a punch and will continue off to the northeast. So Kai, what are you seeing in terms of our temperature changes here?
Well, back when we started coverage and when we were really kind of getting into the details of this, it was 68 in Clarinda. It's 37 now, just to give you an indicator of where we're going in terms of temperatures. There's a little bit of light snow that's been going on in the far northwest corner of the state and portions of Minnesota and South Dakota. Still in the 50s and low 60s here, but the cold front is moving right through here, and so the cold air lags behind by maybe an hour. maybe an hour if you're lucky. And so what winds up happening is cold front situated right about in here as it moves across the region. So all the storms are developing just ahead of this frontal boundary here. And when you have a front that's this strong, so right here's all the storms right now. When you have a storm front like this, a cold front like this, that is as strong as it is, even when you have a time of night that you're typically cooling down, the ingredients are still there, and it's just forcing all that air upward, and that's where you're getting all these thunderstorms to come from. And that's why we're getting the straight line wind threat, and we're getting some high wind gusts in some of these, and we're all still getting a little bit of hail out of some of these things as well. We haven't had a lot of large hail here, thankfully, but there's been some small, either penny-sized hail or even some pea-sized hail. That's been the most common hail size out of this, which we kind of figured was more of a second or even third place kind of threat. It seemed like more of a wind and possible tornado threat in our area with this event.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Kai. And the threat for that tornado still continues toward the areas up by Quasqueton as well as Manchester. This storm has become a little bit less organized as of late.
Go ahead. I'm going to get the Manchester camera pulled up here.
Absolutely. But it still poses a threat. The warning continues until 8:30 for that area. Manchester Municipal Airport and the city of at 8 o'clock or 8:02, so just after the 8 o'clock hour. And then we go into Earlville at 8:14. The Dyersville area at 8:20, as well as Petersburg at 8:20 as well. And then New Vienna, that crosses over into Dubuque County, but you're in line for the storm, or at least an area of storms, by 8:26. And this storm still producing enough rotation for the National Weather Service to maintain the tornado warning. To use an unusual term, it's not as impressive as it looked. However, the threat for rotation is still there.
I would agree with that, definitely, in looking at that. Plus, I think there's also something to be said about the history of the storm itself, that as long as the ingredients are still in place, even if it's a marginal threat, there's really no harm in extending the warning out one more time, because right now it's a radar indicated threat. We have not had a spotter report on this yet for this particular area. There was a spotter report south and west of Vinton, but there has not been a spotter report on it yet, so it's still a radar indicated threat. And again, there's really no harm in terms of issuing one more warning on this in terms of the tornado warning, because again, we're going to just keep a close eye on it because the rotation's been there, and this has been one of the longer supercells that we've had here for quite some time.
Yeah, it's been very long lasting owing to the environment that we have. Just got information from our newsroom. It's not the kind of information that we ever want to hear. Emergency managers in the Winterset area are continuing search and rescue efforts where a tornado struck earlier today. They have characterized the current situation as there being several fatalities due to the storm, but have not delineated exactly how many, perhaps unknown at this point, but they are continuing to search and look for survivors and hopefully get people the help they need if they are still trapped in tornado damaged areas. But that is awful news, obviously, out of central Iowa, and part of the reason why we emphasize take all storms seriously. Mm-hmm. Weather any time of year in eastern Iowa and the state of Iowa at large is not one to mess with. And not saying that that's what happened to these people. They could have just, there's obviously a variety of circumstances where this could have happened. But unsettling news from central Iowa. That's footage from KCCI provided to us, coverage partners there in central Iowa out of Des Moines, of the storm damage near Winterset. And you can see very significant damage to a homestead there.
Aaron, repeat.
Out in rural areas near Winterset. The city itself, I believe the initial report was particularly the southeast portion of the city was heavily affected, as well as areas up toward just northeast of there, Norwalk. Southeastern portions of Des Moines had reports of damage as well. So it's been a pretty serious day across the state of Iowa, and the tornado warning continues. Here in eastern Iowa, same storm, not showing the strength that it did then, which is good. but tornado warning continues until 8:30.
So what we saw on our Vinton City Cam earlier has definitely caused some problems because we've heard from Benton County Emergency Management on the northwest side of Vinton, which includes the industrial area. There's structural damage there. Mobile home park has been damaged. There's additional structures that have been damaged, and a gas leak has been reported on the northwest side of town. We sent Brian Tabak. He is on his way, and he's going to have a full report coming up when he's able to get into there. However, they are saying to avoid the northwest side of Vinton at this time because of the storm damage that has occurred in the area. We were looking at that Vinton City Cam, Corey, when the center of that screen had something there. It was a wide-looking thing, and that would have been that part of town. And we saw the power flashes on our city cam as well. And we have no word on injuries. We have no word on fatalities. We are just simply passing along what Benton County EMA would like to relay out to the public, which is the northwest side of Vinton with some substantial damage in the industrial area. That includes some structures, the mobile home park, and a gas leak has been reported. So we have a crew on the way to the Vinton area right now, and as soon as he's safely able to do so, we'll hear from Brian. It may be a little bit yet, but obviously we're going to take the safest route getting in there, as the city of Vinton has also been hit hard. It doesn't appear obviously as hard as Winterset. We heard the unfortunate news from Corey a little bit ago. We don't know the exact extent of that, but at the same time we just want to make you aware in Vinton you've sustained some storm damage, and Brian is on his way.
Thanks, Kai, for that information. It's unfortunate out of the Vinton area. Hopefully everybody's safe there too, and we'll obviously assess the extent of the damage, like Kai said, as Brian gets more information, and as obviously daylight helps with these situations too. It'll be kind of tough still at night to know exactly what took place, and National Weather Service crews will go out to assess exactly whether it was a tornado, whether it was a localized downburst or something like that that could cause such damage. But when you start talking about structural damage, especially if it's a more well-built structure,
right,
and that kind of all goes together with the scenes that we saw from the city cam.
And that's what we just don't know yet, is the extent of that. And that's something that's going to be determined more than likely. And the thing is this damage was done by something. We don't know if it was a tornado that did it. We don't know if it was a big downburst that did it. But what we do know is that this was the same supercell that moved over Winterset, and the same supercell that passed to the east of Des Moines, the same one that went through Tama, and now the same one that's gone through Vinton. And again, and that's why when you look at the velocity like you're doing right now, Corey, it does not harm at all to issue a warning out in front of this. Even if the velocity looks like it's coming down, we have to remember that there's stuff going on down near the ground. There's still wind shear going on, and there may be some things that radar isn't fully detecting here because of the situation that we're in tonight. So it is a pretty dangerous scenario yet on the leading edge of these storms.
Yeah, radar has gotten very good. There's no way around that.
Absolutely.
National Weather Service has done upgrades to their NexRad radar network and has made improvements to it that gives us more tools to be able to know what's going on inside a storm. But it's not flawless. Some things can happen.
It has limitations,
yep,
right.
Some things can happen in between new scans of the radar, so it has to go around a full circle, and it's also scanning up and down in the atmosphere too, to get a 3D picture of how the storms are looking. And so sometimes brief tornadoes can take place in between those scans. And that's why we say, even if the look on velocity as we're looking at it right now on your screen is not as concerning as it has been at different times tonight, there still is broad rotation just near the Manchester area. So if you are in Manchester, Oneida, Earlville, Delhi, as well as Greeley, you still need to get into shelter. Still the best bet at this point, as storms still could produce tornadoes.
Let's run down some of those tornado warning safety tips, as well as, again, this is the same storm that was around the Winterset area several hours ago and obviously caused some major damage. And this is the same storm that came through the Vinton area and also caused some damage. So want to make sure you're at the lowest level of your home, get underneath something sturdy. So we're really talking to those folks in the tornado warned areas right now, particularly Manchester, Earlville, through the Delhi area and Oneida area, as Corey pinpointed there. Cover yourself with blankets, pillows, and towels. Be sure you are protecting yourself from any possible damage that could occur. Avoiding windows, doors, and outside walls. We typically use a very simple phrase: put as many walls between you and the storm as you possibly can. So small interior rooms are really good, especially if they're in your basement. We get this question sometimes when we visit school kids: what if we don't have a basement? It's going to be a small interior room. You're going to get yourself away from windows and doors and outside walls. Again, we don't know the extent of the damage yet in the Vinton area from a severity standpoint, but we do know that it was fairly substantial there, at least from the aerial coverage. So northwest side of Vinton, again, just want to pass this along to those folks in Benton County that EMA is wanting you to stay out of that part of town because of the damage that has occurred, and also the gas leak that's been reported as well. And Corey, there were some power outages with this storm line too, is that correct?
That's correct. The last report we had was about 13,000. Probably has gone up a little bit since then, but obviously crews are working in central Iowa to help that too. A wide view of pinpoint Doppler radar shows our storms lined up from north to south. If you're north of Highway 20, there are no warnings in effect north of that tier of counties that runs between Waterloo and Dubuque. To the south, a stretching line of severe thunderstorm warnings from the Cedar Rapids metro area through Iowa City, through Washington, down toward Mount Pleasant and Fairfield, though Fairfield just about clear, and that's the back edge of the storms. Once we get past this final line, winds will start to shift. They'll become more westerly and then northwesterly. And you can see, if we even take a little bit wider view, this storm system on its back edge has snow falling in Sioux Falls right now, as well as curling down toward the Omaha area, where they at one time earlier today were in the 60s. So a quick change of weather conditions there. Let's take a look at where these storms are headed over the next 45 minutes. We'll just do a kind of a broad line here. Obviously, the biggest concern is still in Buchanan and Delaware counties with that tornado warning, but we'll put a storm track on about the whole thing. That takes us through the next hour or so. So that gets us into Scotch Grove at 8 o'clock, Cascade at 8:05, Epworth still at 8:10, Cattsville there in southwest Wisconsin and Grant County at 8:15, Dubuque, you're still in line for about 8:25 to 8:30, depending on your side of town. So down by the airport, obviously that's kind of on the edge of the city. That'll be at about 8:26, downtown and the riverfront closer to 8:30. Dickeyville at 8:36, and then Maquoketa at 8:44, Galena at 8:47 as well. Bellevue and Jackson County 8:52. So still many communities, lots of population along the Highway 151, Highway 20 corridors, Highway 61 coming out of the Quad Cities and north through Jackson and Clinton counties. Lots of folks watching us there too. Certainly situations that we need to keep an eye on. And it looks like perhaps a recent update to the tornado warning.
Let me check this out
Yeah,
for you.
it does continue. So they are keeping it in effect until 8:30. No change in that. Looks like as we were talking, a new severe thunderstorm warning. Still tornado indicated by radar. The new severe thunderstorm warning does include pretty much the entirety of Dubuque County except for the very narrow tip on the far eastern side. It includes the city of Dubuque, almost all of Jones County, a big portion of Jackson County too, from about Maquoketa and points to the north. So Dubuque, you are included in the severe thunderstorm warning, which extends until 8:30. It's for the threat of quarter-sized hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds, and it looks like they did have a report of strong winds from a train spotter. So that storm producing severe thunderstorm conditions, and so you need to seek shelter indoors, stay away from windows. Very good advice. Still a serious threat, despite it just being a severe thunderstorm warning, not a tornado warning at this point.
Some more storm reports that have come in here too, while you were talking a little bit ago here. The train spotter reported hail of quarter size, and that was in the Monticello area. So that has verified that warning with 1-inch diameter hail. There's also just been overall some more reports coming out of the Vinton area, but they've been very vague. And it's been about a building that was destroyed on the northwest side of town, which we've given an update about Vinton earlier. And that generally jives with that. The industrial area in the northwest side of Vinton. Again, we have a reporter on the way to Vinton, and what we're going to do here is on Max 2, I'm going to go over some of the most recent storm reports that we've had here. in terms of what's been going on. And we're starting to see more reports coming in at this hour. Now, keep in mind that we're under the cover of darkness right now. And this is not the end-all be-all of damage reports. Even if the storm stops in your area, it's possible there could be additional damage reports that come into our area tomorrow, just given the fact that you wake up and you see what's outside your home, or you wake up and see what's outside your business. But there was a peak wind gust of around 60 miles an hour in the Ely area. The Vinton area reported peak winds estimated of 60 to 70. And again, the northwest side of Vinton appeared to be very hard hit. And again, Benton County EMA says avoid the northwest side of Vinton at this time due to damage in the area. We have sent Brian Tabak to the Vinton area, so we want to give you a heads up on that. And the most recent report that came out of Monticello was that 1-inch diameter hail, and that really just came in a few moments ago.
Yeah, sorry, Jen, go
ahead.
Yeah,
and Kai, kind of going on with those storm reports that we've been seeing across the area. Obviously, again, that Vinton storm, that Vinton potential, maybe tornado or strong wind, whatever it was, we were looking at that coming from the Des Moines area, that storm that we've been talking about here for quite some time. And we just got an update from the National Weather Service in Des Moines that there are initial reports, at least initial surveys of an EF3 damage. They'll continue to do more surveys through the day on Sunday. So that's another thing that we get a lot of questions about. As soon as that storm rolls through, is people want to know what exactly the damage was. Well, it takes some time. So initial reports, EF3 damage there in the Winterset area from the National Weather Service in Des Moines. Again, that's the same storm that has continued to barrel across eastern Iowa and moving through the Vinton area for us. So while we are getting those initial reports, it will take some time to kind of assess all those, and the National Weather Service will certainly continue to do that through the day tomorrow.
Thank you, Jan. That's obviously that goes right along with the other reports we've heard and the video we've seen. Very, very damaging storms in central Iowa. We have a new severe thunderstorm warning for Louisa and Muscatine County. It's on the edge of the viewing area, moving out toward the Quad Cities. Areas like Conesville, Muscatine, Columbus Junction, Wapello, all included in this. It goes until 8:45. Main threat here is damaging winds. You can see it's kind of lined up in a line, stretching from Conesville down toward Columbus Junction. Take off to the northeast real quick, gets into the Muscatine area by about 8:20, Fruitland a few minutes before that, and then eastward from there into Illinois, which is outside of our area of expertise here in eastern Iowa. But that's another storm that is producing the potential for severe thunderstorm gusts. The other storm that we're watching is the one heading into Dubuque, one in Manchester as well, which carries the potential for a tornado still, with rotation still seen.
Get you that live Dubuque City cam.
Yeah, there we go. Dubuque in the corner of your screen there. Not seeing the precipitation yet. Streets are wet. They've had a little bit of rain today.
Oh yeah, earlier we had some storms push by, but largely over the past 4 to 5 hours, it's been fairly quiet in Dubuque. It was a little bit stormy earlier, but certainly nothing strong or severe until this point. And in doing a chat online a little earlier with some folks on Facebook Live and on our streaming channels, we're kind of saying that Dubuque might be a little bit later on in the evening compared to everybody else, right about 8 o'clock or so. And it looks like that's pretty much where we're going to be in this particular case. One thing we can tell you, though, is these storms have had a history of producing some damage to them. They're also going to get some pretty good rainfall out of it, and as you were looking at right there, Corey, a fair amount of lightning too, especially on the leading edge of these storms.
Yeah, prolific lightning producers throughout the whole day. We've seen a lot of that so far today. We'll put the lightning tracker back on there briefly. And that's another threat. It's one that's overlooked frequently, but lightning can kill you. It certainly can hurt you as well, so that's a good reason to stay inside and away from windows. Both are key points there, and lightning moving into the Monticello and Dyersville area at this hour. Wind speeds, you can see kind of the leading edge of the wind is still a little bit ways off from Dubuque, but we'll put a storm track on there. It's where that change happens, right there from a brighter red color to the not as bright. So that'll be headed toward Epworth at 8:05, Centralia at 8:13, Sageville 8:23, gets you into Dubuque again right around 8:25, 8:30. That's been pretty consistent. So that's good news that at least that's staying in its same path. Fair Play at 8:34. And then Menominee in northwest Illinois and Joe Davies County, that gets you there at 8:37. So these storms continuing off to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour, carrying the threat for damaging winds.
Let's go back and look at the temperatures that's going on across the state of Iowa and why these are able to happen. You may be wondering, why this happens on this time of year. And if you get enough ingredients to come into Iowa and you get a strong enough storm to come through and you get a strong enough front to blow through here, then you wind up getting some pretty strong thunderstorms. And so even after dark, when typically storms are beginning in their weakening process, if what we call wind shear is present, which is the change in wind speed and wind direction as you go up in the atmosphere, that can sustain thunderstorm development. Look at Clarinda, it's 36. It was 68 when we started coverage, Corey. So this is a powerful cold front that's sliding through. That's why the storms can do what they can do. And they've had a history of producing some damage in our area. And we still want to reiterate, too, that the worst of the damage that has occurred in our area has unfortunately been in the Vinton area. And it's the latest report that we have is from the northwest side of Vinton, where we've had most of the damage occur. And they're still asking you to stay out of that area as they're able to assess further.
New severe thunderstorm warning, Cedar Rapids. This is round 3 for you, at least in terms of number of warnings tonight. That is until 8:45. This time, winds of 60 miles per hour a threat, as well as some penny-sized hail. The storm is continuing to move off to the east and northeast at about 40 miles per hour. So this very back edge of storms, which continues to be pesky and regenerate, is continuing to slow down a little bit too. So we'll add a storm track on this storm, move it to the east at about 40 miles per hour. Palo, 807, we just had a recent report of penny-sized hail there, as well as some gusty winds. It'll get into the Walford area at 8:15, Cedar Rapids and the Eastern Iowa Airport by about 8:23 to 8:25. Ely at 8:36, and then moving east out of that, it'll be following the first line of storms in the Anamosa area at 8:45. Lisbon as well at 8:48, so Mount Vernon also included about that time frame. More storms, but this is at this point the last line. Behind
Thankfully.
that is when things will start to diminish. But until then, we still have multiple warnings in multiple counties of eastern Iowa.
I understand we've got some video into the newsroom. This is from a mobile home area. This is storm damage in the Vinton area. Okay, so we outside the home here? Yeah, we are. Okay, we're outside of the home in the Vinton area. And yeah, it's pretty substantial from what we can tell here. Now, that northwest side of Vinton is where we wound up getting a lot of the damage here, but there is some storm damage there in the Vinton area, as you can see from this video that we're seeing right here. So, and that's the same storm that's obviously being tornado warned on up in the Manchester area right now, which looks like, did that just get expired?
Just been expired, yep.
They did just drop the tornado warning, which is good news. We'll do a recap of the warnings we have in effect right now in that case. So we'll take a broad view of the warnings that we currently have in eastern Iowa, and then I believe we will likely be sending you back to regular programming. So there are several stretching from Dubuque down toward Mount Pleasant, and we'll go from north to south here. Dubuque area, Dubuque County, as well as Jones and Jackson until 8:30 p.m. 60-mile-per-hour winds, a potential with this storm, as well as quarter-sized hail. The storm moving to the northeast at about 40 to 45 miles per hour. That takes you into the Dubuque area at about 8:26, Galena at 8:53. So that storm will get there and will potentially produce some damaging winds and large hail. To the southwest of that, so the next warning includes, as just mentioned, Benton and Lynn counties. That includes all of the Cedar Rapids metro area, Marion, Hiawatha, as well as up towards Springville and Central City. Storms there could produce 60-mile-per-hour winds, a line that stretches from just southwest of Atkins to just south of Center Point, and moving to the east will arrive in Cedar Rapids in the next 15 minutes. A storm that is in the Iowa City area, Iowa, Johnson, Keokuk, and Washington, 60-mile-per-hour winds. The National Weather Service has been keeping an eye on this area for any signs of rotation. One area that did make me just a little bit anxious as a observer of radar data, just near the Iowa City area, just a very slight area of rotation. It's embedded with other areas of rain, but that is something to keep an eye on, and we certainly will. And I believe the National Weather Service is too, but southwest of Iowa City, we're watching that. Another storm that does include portions of Louisa and Muscatine County, and then further to the south, Jefferson as well as Henry County does include that until 8:30 p.m. 60-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-sized hail, kind of the common theme as we look across the area. So those are the warnings we have in effect right now. Several that continue, And that is the situation that we will be watching here in the TV9 Weather Lab.
Absolutely. And one of the things about this storm system is not just how large it has been in this particular area, but also how much damage it has done, even not just in eastern Iowa, but what has happened in central sections of the state. So we're going to go back a little bit here and recap a bit what has happened in the area. So this is a wide view. Oh, you got a new warning, Corey.
We do. So
Go for it.
we'll
Let's
break
do that
away for
first,
that.
and then we'll do the storm reports.
Yep, so we got Clayton County. It's a very small sliver down by Cassville in the Iowa side of the river, as well as southern Grant County. This goes until 8:45, 60-mile-per-hour winds included with this, and penny-sized hail as a threat. There recently was a report from an emergency manager of wind gust of 55 miles per hour in the Manchester area. So it's same kind of storm system that we've been watching. That supercell storm that we've been watching for so long has finally been overrun by the other line of storms and has pretty much diminished, which is good news. But the threat for other severe weather conditions still exists, and that includes areas of southwest Wisconsin. We'll put a quick storm track on this one too. Spreading to the northeast, Potosi at 8:13, as well as Platteville in eastern Grant County at 8:33, Cuba City as well as 8:44. We're starting to get out of our area though in some of these communities. Dubuque, you are further down the line here, included in the severe thunderstorm warning too. That goes until 8:30, I believe, for the same threat, 60-mile-per-hour winds as well as some penny-sized hail.
The storm reports that have come into this area do continue to get more and more widespread, and especially the history of the storm going back into southwest sections of Iowa. And it was almost one singular storm that caused all the problems. Not quite all the problems, but a lot of the problems. So I'm going to show you here what's been going on here over the past 6 hours. This storm originated just really out to the north and east of Shenandoah. It started firing up at about 3:34 o'clock, and it basically followed a complete northeast path. It dropped tornadoes and large hail along the way from Creston and then into the Winterset area. This is a part of Iowa that's been extremely hard hit here, and we know for certain that there's extensive damage in the Winterset area. There'll be a storm survey team going to that area, and those are all the reported areas of tornadoes. That does not include any sort of damage though, because that's going to have to be assessed as we go. Farther up towards the north, Norwalk, there was a tornado near that area reported. Some hail in the West Des Moines area as well. And then as we follow it farther up to the north into the Newton area, just west of there was some damage. Around the Kellogg area, a large hail report as well as some wind damage reported. And then we keep following it, and then that puts it right up into the Tama area, and then eventually back up into the Vinton area, which again, in our immediate local area here, the northwest side of Vinton, they're asking you to avoid the area. The EMA is asking you to avoid the area. Benton County EMA is saying that because of the damage that's happened in the area, the gas leak in the area on the northwest side of Vinton, the structural damage that's also happened. And that's the exact same storm cell that has moved up into Delaware County and then eventually off to the east. But the good part is you don't really see any storm icons at this point. What is this, Aaron? Okay, this is the damage video that we're looking at in Vinton here, and this is just one video that we're seeing here. And we have 2 crews now on the way. Brian Tabak was on the way earlier. We've sent a second crew now in light of this new information that we're also getting in terms of how much damage there appears to be. And it does seem like that we caught that on the city cam as it was coming in. So it's obviously an unfortunate situation there with the amount of damage that appears to have occurred on the northwest side of Vinton. So we're sending a news crew here, and we'll have some reports from them a little bit later on here, probably by the TV9 News at 10, most likely, just to give you some kind of time reference on that. But otherwise, I mean, these things have really had a pretty long history. Meteorologist Jan Ryherd, do you have an update on the tornado watch and any other photos that may have come in during this event?
Yeah, so looking at our tornado watch now, that we're at 8:15, so we're past that 8 o'clock hour, so that kind of western part of the TV9 viewing area, you guys have fallen out of that tornado watch. So the severe weather threat has passed as that line of storms has moved through, that front has moved through. not expecting anything to fire up kind of back behind that. So Tama area, again, Oskaloosa there on the western fringe of the TV9 viewing area, you guys have been allowed to expire. But that tornado watch does still continue at this time, at least until 11 o'clock for the rest of the area here shaded in that yellow color. Again, that includes Manchester and Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, all the way down towards Washington and Mount Pleasant as well. So that threat still does continue for especially, I think we'll see damaging wind. Also seeing some reports of some small hail recently in places such as the Coralville area. So still looking at that small hail threat as well, and can't completely discount that tornado threat, even though we have seen things kind of downtrending a little bit more. Certainly we are still worried about that. That's why that watch is still out for us here at this time. Here's a couple things that we were looking at earlier on today. This coming in from Katy in the Kellogg area. That's near Newton. That Winterset tornado, that Newton tornado, where we've been hearing a lot of damage as well as unfortunately fatalities out of central Iowa. This is that same storm, and this is what has been moving towards eastern Iowa, that moved through the Vinton area earlier on, as well as that same cell that moved through the Manchester area here just a short time ago. In the Belle Plaine area, again, that same storm cell earlier on this evening, moving through. You can see that wall cloud there, kind of what the tornado will come out of there, as well as some hail in the Des Moines area. So again, that hail threat still does exist for us here as we head through the rest of the evening. Now remember, as that threat does continue to move past your particular area, we do invite you to send in your pictures and your damage reports. You can do that on the KCRG First Alert weather app. You can do that at KCRG.com/unews. You can also email us, or if you want to try to give us that information on social media, stuff like that. We welcome your storm reports. We welcome your pictures, but only if it is safe for you to do so. Please make sure that you are putting your safety first. That is certainly the most important.
Thank you, Jan. Some new information from the newsroom. The Red Cross is on the way to Vinton. They'll be working to establish shelters for storm victims. We will obviously have that information as soon as we have it. Don't have the exact details yet, but we will be effort in that and trying to get more information. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for Dubuque, Jones, and Jackson County. You can see there on your screen. Lower right is Iowa City, where we've been kind of watching just a little bit of a lowering on our camera. We're going to pull up Dubuque here in just a second and give you a view of what's happening there as storms start to bear down. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for Iowa City as well as Cedar Rapids. So 3 major metro areas in eastern Iowa included in warnings at this point, as well as many areas surrounding as this line of storms starts to finally march through. So we'll take a look at all of these now. I'll give you a rundown as we come across the quarter hour, past the hour. Here in Dubuque County, that warning continues. No new reports from the National Weather Service, but strong winds likely to move into the Dubuque area here in the next 5 to 10 minutes, something that we will definitely be keeping a close eye on. Cascade recently had a report of some pea-sized hail. It's not the type of hail that will do any sort of damage, but is just another data point here that we have to work with. Good sign, obviously, that it's not any larger than that. Another line of storms here in the Vinton and Lynn County areas, as well as portions of northwest Cedar County. Haven't had an update on this storm anytime recently either, which is, again, good news. When the National Weather Service is quiet, that's usually a good sign. That is entering the Robbins area at 8:22, Cedar Rapids at about 8:27, Springville toward 8:40, and then Anamosa toward 8:49, just outside of the warning area. Viola at the very edge of that warning area does have that warning continuing until 8:45. Portions to the south, we've mentioned that storm near Iowa City, still producing the potential for damaging winds and some small hail. Heavier area of precipitation moving right near Interstate 80 right now. It's shown some signs of some very weak rotation. Nothing that's alarming enough for the National Weather Service to issue a tornado warning, but it is something that we're watching. A very small storm, but even small storms can cause big problems if we have that. And then another severe thunderstorm warning further to the south from that, but the line stretching down 151 and then down 380 toward the Johnson County area as well. I'm going to reposition the Hiawatha camera here real quick off air, as well as some of our Cedar Rapids metro area things as that storm gets closer. Some pretty strong storms moving into the area. and that will be affecting the metro, especially north of Highway 30. If you're in the Fairfax area, down toward Ely, it looks like you're in a scoot between two areas of storms. But right now, the metro area itself is looking potentially a little bit rough.
Yeah, and it's just amazing how many different little lines have come out of this, and it's really just because of what this cold front is doing and what this cold front is capable of. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning to wind chills probably in the teens and 20s, and actual temperatures generally around 30. So it's a really strong cold front, and it's squeezing out whatever it can here tonight, and that's why we're seeing so many different lines of storms that are coming through here, and as you've been pinpointing there in the area, especially around the Cedar Rapids area. Let me put in the bottom right-hand corner here the Cedar Rapids City Cam as well, and looking off towards the west, you see a little lowering there. There's nothing that's anywhere close to the ground, but you can kind of see it there in the distance. Let me outline that for you here just one moment. If you can't see it at home, you'll be able to be telling. I'll illustrate on there for you in just a moment here as to what we are seeing. This again does not appear to be any sort of a tornado risk. It's just a very low cloud at the moment. So it's probably going to bring the winds up a little bit, and it may drop a little bit of hail down too, and it won't last very long. I would say probably no more than maybe 5 to 10 minutes tops when this thing comes through. But this is the lowering there. It's in the southwest sky, and that's exactly what Corey was looking at. You can see it right there just west of Cedar Rapids. That's where the camera's pointed right now, is off towards the west. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a lowering there, but it's not quite anywhere close to the ground to really have too much of a factor from a tornado threat, but it's going to storm pretty good for about a 5-minute period. That's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, absolutely. Heavy rain, small hail, gusty winds, all the potential there. You can kind of see other cloud bases as we scroll around here on the Cedar Rapids City Cam. Located on the Mount Mercy University campus, so we're looking various directions to try to get a picture of this storm that's moving off to the east. Looks like we have some new information from our National Weather Service partners, Dubuque County, near the New Vienna area, which is on the western portion of the county there. 65-mile-per-hour wind gust, I believe the fire department said, came across from the National Weather Service. It was relayed via tweet. 65-mile-per-hour wind gusts there just a few minutes ago. So that's the type of intense winds that are possible in the Dubuque area in the next several minutes.
Yeah, it's that leading edge too that you've been talking about quite a bit. Let me put the Dubuque City Cam here on the right if you want to do a storm track on the left, so viewers in Dubuque have an idea of what to expect here this evening, because it's largely been pretty quiet in Dubuque. You've been watching the coverage with us, and you've been seeing all these other towns getting in line for some severe weather, and now it's your turn, essentially, is where we're at here in terms of the Dubuque area. So you're pretty much seeing it right now in Dubuque, where it's gusted over 60 miles an hour, as has been reported by the fire department as well. Galena, it won't be too much longer until it gets to your neck of the woods either, as it continues to move off to the east fairly quickly. So we just want you to be aware of this tonight. This has a history of causing some damage, and certainly a 65-mile-an-hour wind gust can cause its share of damage as well. And the time of night that we are in right now, it's obviously the evening hours. We probably cannot tell exactly what type of damage has been done by some of these storms yet, because we just need to wait till the daylight for us to really see everything. So it may be something where the storm comes and goes, and then you wake up in the morning and you realize, okay, I did lose a tree branch here, or I did have some damaging hail there. So just keep that in mind in the Dubuque areas. The severe thunderstorm warning does continue for you. It's been largely pretty quiet in Dubuque tonight, at least until now, Corey.
Absolutely. Sorry, just moving around some cameras, trying to get a better look at some stuff here in
this Lynn County storm.
It is one to watch for sure, where we're having frequent lightning and heavy rain moving into the area. It's also a storm moving through eastern Johnson County, kind of right along Interstate 80, between the areas of Morse and West Branch. Let's pinpoint that there off to the southwest. It's small, but it looks like it's kind of powerful in that area. It's a very small area that would be affected by this storm, but potentially could be a little bit dangerous. Looking off that direction, could still be producing, pending to quarter-sized hail, maybe winds up to 60 miles per hour involved with this storm too. So West Branch area, one to look out for. Let's make sure that there's not a sort of rotation going on. Nothing hard to pick out, anything in particular. Watching that area perhaps just west of West Branch, but even then it's not quite co-located with the storm itself. So maybe some interference there from other storms. Otherwise, the southern end of the line is about out of the area. It's about ready to cross the Mississippi River. Same on the northern end. So we're getting to the point where we're getting close to these storms getting off our back.
We are, thankfully, too. And we might be able to get a lot of these out of here by 9 o'clock if we're lucky, which would be really nice to see here. And there's nothing forming behind this line. The storm reports over the past 6 hours, these have been really impressive. This is March 5th, keep in mind, that we're dealing with here. And it's not just us, it's really a lot of the Midwest. There's some heavy snow, too, off to the north and west of this particular storm system. But some of the more immediate storm reports that have come in here, this is within about the past 10 to 20 minutes or so that we have seen, is another hail report. This came out of Cascade in Dubuque County, just pea-sized hail, but still hail all the same. Had another wind gust report that came out of New Vienna, again at the fire department, 65 miles an hour. So that lends support to that severe thunderstorm warning that does continue for all of Dubuque County pretty much. Farther back towards the north and west, we continue to get some more reports out of Delaware County, and this is a wind gust out of Manchester at 55 miles an hour. There's one report just to the left of that as well, just off towards the west, another 55-mile-an-hour report. A hail report in portions of Lynn County. This was penny-sized hail back when this moved through the Palo area. And farther down towards the south and west, I mispunched that one. Apparently you can do that with this software, and you can highlight a bunch of reports at the same time. That's handy, but I didn't mean to do that there. Just south of the Tama area was a tornado report, and that was a tornado with power flashes on it. And that, we saw something very similar on our Vinton city cam when it was moving into the area. And so down in the Vinton area in particular, now you only see 2 reports there on the map. But it sounds like it's much worse than that, because according to the EMA, Red Cross is on the way to establish shelter for some storm victims. And so that's on the northwest side of Vinton, where we're apparently hardest hit. And we have 2 news crews on the way to this area, and they're going to be giving you good, thorough updates on this as we go forward. And if we don't hear from them in the next, say, 15 to 20 minutes, we're very likely to hear from them on the TV9 News at 10 as they continue to gather information about what exactly happened here in the Vinton area.
All right, let's take one quick rundown of what's going on across eastern Iowa right now. Dubuque has been our focus over the last little while. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for the city of Dubuque, as well as much of the county until 8:30 p.m. this evening. 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail are the threat with this storm. Recently had a report a little bit further down the line, Mechanicsville Fire Department estimating 40-mile-per-hour winds, so not quite severe, but certainly enough that they could take down some small branches. Another severe thunderstorm includes portions of Benton County, though the threat for Benton has ended at this point. It's just Lynn County that could still see some damaging winds with this. And in fact, it's staying completely north of Highway 30 at this point. The northern end of the Cedar Rapids area is in line for that potential, which could be 60 miles per hour or 60-mile-per-hour winds. Much of Johnson County still has some showers and storms moving through Iowa, Keokuk, and Washington. You are clear of any more severe weather this evening. And then Muscatine and Louisa also still under severe thunderstorm warnings, where recently in Moscow in Muscatine County, an estimated gust of 65 miles per hour. So storms still packing a punch as they move off to the east. And as Kai has mentioned, we have crews moving into Vinton to take a look at what happened there, reports of damage that we will be following through on over the next couple of hours, gathering information for the TV9 News at 10, which is coming up on schedule after the NBA basketball game wraps up. We also have reports out of Central Iowa that we'll be following up out of. We do have news crews that happen to be there for the state basketball tournament, and we will be leaning on them and our coverage partners there to provide more information on what unfortunately turned into a deadly day due to weather there south of Des Moines. More information from Winterset as time goes forward too. Thanks for joining us over the last couple of hours here. For meteorologist Kai O'Mara and meteorologist Jan Ryherd, I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson. We'll have the latest on these storms and the next steps in our weather coming up tonight at 10. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG-TV9.
Severe weather on KCRG-TV9, sponsored by AmeriClean.